Thanks.
Today's
What we would probably be doing is the same thing as Mortal Kombat 9 did
today's
Today,
with
today,
Shao Kahn.
today,
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 hey.
today, hey.
today's
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to us making weird noises while Cosmonaut Variety Hour smiles at a hot dog.
today's
Please, hot dog, bye. Yes, as we mentioned, we're going to be watching Cosmo's review of
Today's-
all of the X-Men films, which is going to be, let's see, that's about two hours long, I think, total. So we
Yeah.
should probably get started pretty quick. But before we begin, I want to say all positive thoughts and hopes go out to Wally the friendly alligator, Wally the emotional support gator, who played Gator Loki in the Loki TV show. He was kidnapped from his enclosure and released into the wild by a negligent Department of Wildlife worker over in Atlanta. And yeah, Wally happens to be microchipped, so there's no excuse. Somebody needs to be fired over this. Anyways, in more positive news, let's I can't pretend it's positive. We're watching Cosmonaut Variety Hour. So let's go ahead and get started.
today's video is
Kevin, we can stop doing that.
today's video is sponsored by Alien Clothing.
That is a stupid fucking logo.
Hello, welcome back.
Take off the mask,
Marty's
Cosmo, you're
School for
indoors.
Gifted nitpickers. Boy howdy, has it been a long year. And a lot of you guys have been telling me that I haven't made that many videos this year, which isn't true, but
I don't
planning
care.
something. A little secret.
We
The
don't
less videos
care.
you make, the better,
For a
Marcus.
few years.
Why is his
This
hair...
is it.
Hang on, why is
What
his
you're
hair
watching.
sparkling
That's
inside of the green
That's
screen
right.
area?
The day has finally come. The
I
video
don't
that 5
know.
people have asked me to make. We're gonna watch X-Men today. So yeah,
Good.
I guess this is a new
Good God, I just want to point out that I've done green screen work, and I've never chroma keyed something that poorly.
Cosmonaut tradition. Whenever winter rolls around, I get the urge to end the year in a bang.
Oh,
by
we better
watching
keep
and
talking,
reviewing every
otherwise we'll get
movie
taken
in
down
a
for
really
the
long
Ron
series.
Wasserman
And now we
X-Men
finally
theme
get to
playing.
watch a series that I am not
How is
familiar with.
how would
That's
we
right,
get
I've
taken
only
down for a
seen
theme
handful
that's
of
already
X-Men
available on
movies.
many
I think I've
YouTube
seen, like,
channels without
half of them. And the ones that I have
any
seen, I don't really remember
copyright
so
Kevin,
much.
we
issues?
got
You
taken
see,
down for
X-Men are
having
kind of my
footage
comic
that
book
Movie Bob
blind
had
spot.
in
I've
his
read some of the
video
core
in our
comics,
video.
but not much more beyond
Oh,
that.
that's
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest
fucking
with you guys, I'm
stupid.
kind of a fraud. I haven't read a comic book in a really long time.
Oh, that explains why you think that Civil War was a good comic then.
But it's okay. Things are gonna change today. Okay, I got a whole stack of stuff. All right, while I watch these X-Men movies, I'm gonna read the comic books. All right.
Okay, that's good. That means that you might be in danger of developing good taste.
I've got more down there too. You can't see them, but there's a lot.
You can show me.
Alex, I don't know about that, and I'm sure this guy simps for X-Men '97 and lack of ass Rogue.
uh,
I didn't need to
Rogue
buy
was a better
these.
written character when she had an actual ass.
all of
Now that
Rogue's
she
good
has
writing
no
went out of the road. All of Rogue's good writing got shit out with her dump truck ass when they put her on Ozempic.
Yep, and she basically became John Walker, except everybody simps for
Now,
her.
now people simp for her because she's got herself a sexy
Now,
accent.
originally, I was gonna do the first 3 movies in one video, and then all these ones in another video.
Why wouldn't you just do, like, the original trilogy, then, and, like, Wolverine? I mean, because Origins Wolverine could easily get yourself an entire video out of that just based on the production problems alone. And then you could do, like, the Wolverine after that and the Rebirth trilogy. No, you could do the the redo trilogy, whatever the fuck they call it, because they have a specific name for it. But you could do First Class, the Wolverine, Days of Future Past, and Apocalypse all in one video, or you could split that into 2, it doesn't matter. And then you could do Deadpool, Deadpool 2. Those could be, like, one excuse me, one video, and then you could make a video apiece dedicated to the abominations that are her Fant Four Stick, Dark Phoenix, and the New Mutants. Have you ever thought about that, Marcus? Maybe you could dedicate more than 5 minutes to each fucking movie?
Alex,
and then the Wolverine.
he hates the long man. You should know that by now.
Oh, right. I forgot.
Anything longer than 5 minutes means that he's long manning, and that goes against his quote unquote beliefs.
In another video.
Hi,
No, we're not
Blob.
doing all that. Fuck that. In this video, I'm gonna do the first trilogy and those weird prequel movies all at once.
They're not weird okay, so one of them is a prequel, the other one... Whatever.
And the next video will be everything else.
That's a stupid way to do things, Marcus. You're
It really is.
You're fucking insane.
But before we start with X-Men 1, you guys already know that this video is going to get demonetized. I'm doing 7 movies. One of them is going to get this video blocked. So
then why wouldn't you split it up into multiple videos, one for each movie, maybe?
First, we need to have a word from a
because then they'd be too short.
This video is sponsored by Alien Clothing. That's right, today we're doing something a little different for
okay, so your green screen looks better here.
I'm very particular about my drip, and that's why this is a brand that I
You have next to no drip, buddy.
Indie streetwear brand started a few years ago by my good buddy Elvis the Alien. And let me say this.
Elvis the Alien is your friend? Elvis, my dude, you need to find better friends. I'm subscribed to Elvis the Alien. I like his videos. Oh.
Merch is on another level. Like I said, I'm picky about what I wear, but Elvis really created this brand for people like us who are into anime and video games.
Okay.
And look, you guys
hey, you know what? That's actually pretty good.
That's why you're here. So if you want to wear stuff
that's fucking stupid
while actually being stylish, then head over to alienclothing.com and use code Cosmo to get 20%
I shop thrift store chic,
anything.
man. I don't know what to say.
Anything. And this stuff is hot. It goes fast and for good reason.
Dude, I don't
These
fucking
designs are
care.
curated from some of the best artists around the world, and some of them don't get restocked, so you gotta jump on them when you see them.
Please
stuff
stop with
looks
that.
And feels great. I am
I don't care.
fan of the hoodies. That's why this is what we're wearing in today's YouTube video. I've had a lot of friends try to steal this hoodie from me, and they're not gonna get it.
You don't have friends, Marcus. Don't lie to
No,
me.
you don't.
To alienclothing.com
especially in the year that this video was made.
Off. And of course, I'd like to thank Alien for sponsoring this video. X-Men 1 is fine. It's okay.
It's the movie that revitalized the modern superhero genre for the mainstream audience, but, you know, sure.
Now, all things considered, I actually have kind of a soft spot for this movie. See, when I was a kid, this shit was like my favorite movie. I thought the 90s X-Men cartoon...
What? Hang on, why did you turn up the brightness and crop the fucking footage for this?
So cool.
Oh, no, that's a... No, I know what video that's from. That's... Oh, no, that's from the... That's from the Waifu 2X HDR edit that somebody made.
But I never really caught that many episodes. But somehow,
You know what? I'll take the Waifu 2X over whatever the fuck this is, Marcus. Please go back.
I still liked the X-Men, and I think I enjoyed them purely for their aesthetic. I mean, look at this character design. Maybe it's my...
Yeah, it's good at character design. Ow, no, I take it...
Talking, but
Marcus, zoom out.
These designs is just so... They look...
Okay, why did you go with the Triple H crotch chop there? But yeah, the 90s X-Men designs are the best.
Delicious. I want to chew on them. So when my dad
God.
an X-Men movie,
listen, buddy, I know.
Forget about it. I thought this shit was so cool.
We're all hot for teacher for that,
boy,
but
I gotta say, I don't know why I liked this as much as I did.
I've seen this movie recently, Marcus. I know exactly why you liked it. It's because it's good.
It's not a bad movie, but it's definitely a product of its time.
Okay, I mean, it's still better than every movie we've gotten from Marvel in the last 3 years, I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. This is the best part. Check out these physics. Yep, around we go. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense, but fuck it, who cares?
It's a comic book movie, Marcus. It doesn't have to.
And you see, this movie.
The man has, you know what? Far be it for me to be the guy to say this, but if you're going to complain about the man who has a metal skeleton and metal claws coming out of his hands doing something like that, we have bigger problems.
Yeah.
Because, like, never mind, I've made my point.
Special because it came out right before Spider-Man ruined everything. I'm saying that if you've
I've seen his video, and I still can't believe this.
Yeah.
been watching this channel for a little while now.
Oh, hi, Halle Berry.
You'll notice that a lot
Hang on, why is this footage low resolution compared to the
superhero.
Did you use a DVD rip? No, did you use a You can find HD rips of this movie, Marcus. You didn't have to go with a 2004 YouTube upload.
That came out right after Spider-Man are basically just bad Spider-Man ripoffs.
Yeah, Daredevil was not trying to be Spider-Man, though. Daredevil was kind of trying to be Batman.
Yeah, and failing.
Oh my god. Also, fucking Catwoman trying to be Spider-Man? You fucking kidding me? No, that movie was in development since before Spider-Man got into development. Hell, that was in development, and that Michelle Pfeiffer was supposed to star in that movie.
Yep.
That movie was gonna be bad regardless.
So honestly, the best thing about this movie is that it has its own
Hi, Ray
identity.
Park.
It's interesting to watch a superhero movie that isn't trying to copy other superhero movies.
I mean, it is kind of trying to copy Blade. Have you not seen Blade, Marcus?
He has.
Okay, then he's stupid. But we already knew that.
This was like the first one.
No, it wasn't. Blade came out before this, and this movie is directly trying to ape Blade's aesthetics with all the black leather.
This is a very different kind of superhero movie because it takes itself very seriously a lot of the time. To a degree that you...
And Blade, Batman 89, Batman Returns, they didn't. Technically, even to some extent, Superman the movie took itself seriously. If we want to go into, like, overt parody territory, we have to either go back to the Schumacher films, or even further back than that to, fucking, Batman from the 60s.
You just don't see nowadays.
I mean...
I think a lot of people realize that Joss Whedon really changed the way superhero movies work.
I mean, kind of, but not really. Like Joss Whedon didn't change as much as people like to try and say he did, because all of those seeds were planted back... Hang on, Joss Whedon wrote for this fucking movie. I just remembered here, Joss Whedon was one of the ghostwriters on X-Men, and like he was one of the uncredited rewrites, and Marcus apparently either doesn't know that or doesn't fucking care. And yeah. And on top of that, we also have the fact that, like, Joss Whedon didn't directly change how superhero movies were made with the Avengers, because the things that go into this film, all of those... This is like people who say that Resident Evil 4 ruined Resident Evil. Resident Evil 4 was kind of an inevitability with the way Resident Evil was going, because they were constantly adding mechanics in. They were testing out concepts with every game they put out, with every spin-off. Like, you can trace the evolution of what became Resident Evil 4 simply by playing all of the Resident Evil spin-offs, like all the Resident Evil games and all of the spin-offs. Resident Evil 4 was the culmination of all the mechanics they'd been working on up to that point, and they kept expanding on it afterwards. Like, The Avengers was a culmination of everything that had led up to that point. The humor was something that was going on back in Iron Man. The humor was something that, you know, the characters making jokes about some of the situations and stuff at their sometimes at their own expense. That happened all throughout Phase 1. People love to try and ignore this. People like to try and say that Joss Whedon changed the whole way that everything was going and started injecting humor into everything, and then everything had to have jokes in it.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, did you watch any other movies aside from the Avengers? Spider-Man! Spider-Man was out in 2002. Spider-Man had jokes in it and Joss Whedon didn't touch that.
Avengers 1 is basically the template that most of these movies follow nowadays, but
You're massively ignorant, Marcus. We already covered this back in your Avengers review, your MCU retrospective that you did.
back then, you got movies like this. This is basically a drama about prejudice and injustice, and it just so happens to star an immortal Canadian with swords in his hands.
That's incredibly reductive, considering that he
Yeah.
is like the quintessential character regarding like PTSD, memory loss, and the fucking toils of aging for, several generations, but go off on one.
Whatever.
After a few scenes that establish that this movie is about human inequality, we have Rogue, who accidentally puts her boyfriend in the pussy prison.
What?
I I had to pause for a second because I was about to cringe. That joke's not funny, Marcus.
And
Ooh.
runs away to a barren, violent wasteland.
Hang on, why was that shot such look? I'm sorry, I have incredibly high standards for all of this because I have a extensive physical media collection from which I have derived my own collection of high quality rips. I have a Blu-ray drive connected to my laptop, connected to a hard drive that is 14 terabytes, and I use that
I have
to back
a,
up my fucking Blu-rays.
and I have both the Blu-rays and 4Ks of all the original X-Men movies.
Yep. And I source all of my clips directly from those, except for things that I can't get legitimately. And
Mhm.
yeah. Marcus, can you like do you have a potato rig? Could you maybe upgrade your fucking quality?
Why would he need to?
Canada.
He's
Then
a,
she meets
he's a
Wolverine,
successful YouTuber, don't you
Eh.
know?
played by Hugh Jackman, and this is where I give my most head-ass take of all time.
Okay.
Let's hear it, Marcus.
I'm waiting with bated breath. What could possibly top all of the shit you had to say about Captain America and Spider-Man? Or you know what? The shit you had to say about Civil War. Like, the fucking comic was better than...
But I never really loved Hugh Jackman as Wolverine.
You're fucking stupid.
Indeed.
And no, I'm not
Yes, very much so.
I'm
going
with
to
that.
convince anybody that I'm right. I'm not going to convince anyone that he doesn't fit the role.
Except you tried to.
Okay,
every
could you
single
maybe...
fucking
If
time.
you're going to say that, why did you even bother... You could have explained why you didn't like him in shorter space than this.
Because my opinion is very biased and strange.
Is it like how you didn't watch The Amazing Spider-Man 2 because the song you hate was in the movie?
The only reason I don't like him is because I don't like how tall he is. Now, here
Kevin, I want to go home.
Alex, aren't you at your place?
Oh, shit. Right. I guess we'll have to keep watching the video.
me out. Wolverine is supposed
No.
to be a disgusting little manlet. He's supposed to look like a short little
Okay, I own this show on DVD. I happen to know that it doesn't look this bad.
hairy slab of meat. Little angry chode man. I'm reading the comics now, and everybody calls him short and stinky all the time.
Okay.
And you just don't get to see that kind of character in a superhero movie.
I mean, he's hairy and he's a little rough and tumbly. It's good enough for me.
Even when
Yeah.
superhero actors are short, they have to wear platform shoes, so they
That's because Tony Stark is like 6 foot tall in the comics, and he's like Robert Downey Jr. is comically shorter. It'd be distracting.
Yeah.
can seem taller and more heroic. Well, I'm sick of it, okay? I want more short superheroes.
Who would you cast?
Yeah.
Would uh, would you cast fucking Glenn Danzig like Wizard Magazine wanted to? Because that's not a good idea.
Being short is part of Wolverine's identity, but
I mean, I'd argue that being poor is kind of part of Spider-Man's identity, and him having not not a lot of resources is part of his identity. But you like that movie, so
I do still think Jackman obviously
Alex,
does
keep
a
in
good
mind,
job as the character.
Alex, keep in mind that at MCU, Spider-Man still had to dumpster dive to get most of the shit that he got. There
oh
was
yeah, no, that would have been
an
great if he had
he
a
was at the very
solo
least,
movie
yes, it would
for
have
that.
been. And at the very least it does at the very least Tony scouting him out is kind of why he has access to a number of these things
Oh no no
nowadays.
no no! I'm just saying, for Marcus, this is a stupid fucking argument.
No, I get that. I'm just kind of,
Oh yeah,
doing
no,
the whole to be fair
I
thing.
can understand because I love the Iron Spider suit as a concept, and I love of like Peter,
Mr. Stark, it
yeah,
feels like a new car in here.
yeah, and I love Peter having
He's such a
access
fucking nerd.
to like shit that's not busted, but like Marcus is such a fucking hypocrite.
I mean, even in the worst
Is.
X-Men movies, it'll still have Wolverine acting his ass off. And
Yeah, okay, at least you're praising
I
something.
gotta respect that. So whatever, it may not be what I want, but I can acknowledge that it's fine. Also, this is unrelated, but I like how this movie has whimsical music whenever we see some mutant superpowers for the first time. What am I watching, E.T.? Why is this so adorable?
Adorable. That was unnerving when I first watched it, but yeah, go off
Yeah.
on one.
It's kind of funny how in all of our big ensemble superhero movies nowadays, we have to spend an hour getting the characters together.
So, the Avengers was about the formation of the team. The Guardians of the Galaxy was about the formation of the team. I'm trying to think about X-Men First Class was about the formation of the team. Is there something else? Am I missing something here, Kevin? And because I
No,
think
you're
those are the
not.
only 3 examples.
No, no, you're not missing anything.
Okay, yeah. Okay, by the way, the Justice League, about the formation of the team.
But in this movie, the X-Men just show up and save Logan and
Hi,
Rogue
Tyler Mane.
immediately. No fanfare, no build-up. We don't even know who these people are. Fuck it. We don't have time to waste. From
That's because that's a cold introduction, Marcus. I thought you knew about film.
here, the rest of the movie is kind of a fish-out-of-water narrative featuring Wolverine,
Yes, as is frequently the case with Wolverine. Keep up.
which is a little weird.
Yeah.
No, it's not. This is literally part of Wolverine's character when he has the amnesia. Keep up. You read the comics, you know
This
this.
movie spends a lot of time
He
explaining
should, but he
mutant
doesn't.
injustice to Wolverine.
Wolverine got his memory erased back in the 70s. You've watched these movies, Marcus. You know what's going on here. Or he has a big fucking hole in his head.
Like, he should just know all of this. He is so old. And
He has amnesia, you dipshit.
You know this, Marcus. Stryker blew a fucking hole in his brain with an adamantium bullet back in the 70s. He's been wandering about with literally, hey, 2 things to his name, the jacket and the fucking dog tags, for like 30 years now. He doesn't know shit about
you
dick.
see, like I said earlier, this movie is taking
Hi,
itself
Jubilee.
really seriously.
The man who attacked you is an associate of his called Sabretooth.
Sabretooth. Storm. What do they call you? Wheels?
What do you want about
Yeah,
you
hi,
call
Joss.
yourself Wolverine. If there's anything corny or camp,
Okay. But the Wolverine is a vicious creature, and so is Ace, so... Fuck, I used to be called the Wolverine at one point. Not related to this, but, you know.
from the source material, this movie is like, hey, isn't it dumb how corny comic books are?
Not really.
This is a movie for grown-ups.
X-Men appeals to all audiences. X-Men was literally Marvel's most popular thing outside of Spider-Man.
You actually go outside in these things?
What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
Oh yeah, one of the best parts of X-Men '97, by the way, is when Scott says, "Would you prefer black leather?" when somebody criticizes the yellow spandex. Would have been better in the original, but
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
I would prefer that. I said that before. But the thing is, I'm sorry, this movie is still corny, and I'm fine with corny. I like
why do you keep
You
complaining
clearly
about it
weren't.
corny. But it's
Clearly
awkward
weren't,
because
since
this
you
film
hated
thinks
Spider-Man
it's more
1.
serious and more self-aware
then? Hang on, what? This shot is straight out of The Evil Dead.
than it actually is. How you gonna make a movie about a guy with hair like this, who again has swords in his hands and a metal skeleton, and try to play it completely straight?
How are those swords?
Those are daggers at their absolute longest, for one thing. For another, why wouldn't you? Also, it's not. You keep bringing up that it's not. You fucking coxicle. Oh god. Oh.
I really just don't understand. But also, this movie isn't interested
Jesus
in
Christ.
wasting any
Wolverine.
time over-explaining anything, and it's kind of funny. Xavier's like, "Hello, Logan. This is my school for displaced, homeless super children."
They're not homeless. A lot of them actually do have homes. It's a fucking boarding school. Like, legitimately,
Yeah, come on.
it's an actual boarding school. People send their children here to learn their fucking powers. They don't... It's not just for the people like Rogue who run away from home. You read the comics, you fucking know this. This was established back in Uncanny X-Men #1.
Also, I have a superhero strike force and a mega plane in the basement.
Yeah?
Why? Don't worry about why.
Don't worry, the movie explains why. There's a Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, Marcus.
Like, there's another weird part later in the movie
Yeah.
where the evil mutants attack Storm and Cyclops at the train station.
Uh-huh.
And Storm, like, obliterates
Okay, so that just you just explained to yourself why the Strike Force exists.
Sabretooth, but then
Doesn't obliterate Sabretooth. Sabretooth isn't immortal just like Wolverine. You know this because you've watched the other movie.
Sabretooth just walks away
Because he's a he regenerates just like Wolverine.
and kidnaps Rogue. And
You know this.
then they all come back through the station, and Storm and Cyclops
Fuck, he is established as regenerating in this movie.
aren't there anymore.
Yeah.
And they're not outside either. They're just gone.
Marcus, it's been a more than insignificant amount of time, so I'm not going to take your word for this, regardless, because you either edit shit so that it either looks or sounds worse than it actually does, or you just fucking forget about things. So I'm not gonna take your word for that.
Like, where did they go? They were here to save their friends, but they just left. This movie is really just rushing to get to the next set piece or cool scene. Back
That's not what I felt, but you know, well, if you don't have that same criticism for The Last Stand, I'm going to have a bad
then
time.
you could just have plot holes because we didn't have YouTubers to overthink everything and convince people that movies with plot
Except for the fact that movie reviewers complained about shit like this all the time, and the fucking IMDb forums existed. There were all kinds of fucking things back then, Marcus. You and I are... How old is he? He's not that much younger than I am, right?
As far as I know.
You and I are roughly the same age, Marcus. You should know
holes
this.
are bad.
Also, this is the kind of shit my grandmother used to complain about stuff like this. And then, you know, we'd get into a conversation about that, and then she'd say, oh, well, I guess we're thinking too much. They don't want us doing that.
What? Anyway, let's look at a funny
Yeah, that cutaway didn't make any sense. You should go right for Family Guy.
out of context
Yeah.
scene. I should also say that in this movie, the
Okay.
best performance has definitely come out of Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart. I particularly like
Okay.
seeing McKellen playing a villain for once. I think it's fun and kind of sexy. I think
What? Do you have a
Marcus,
thing? Do you have a thing for elderly men?
Marcus, do you have something you need to communicate to us? In fact, I'd rather you keep it to yourself.
I've had one too many Lord of the Rings rewatches because seeing him as a mustache-twirling bad guy
He doesn't have a mustache, and he's not really a mustache-twirling bad guy. Part of the reason why this movie is so appealing and has so much weight even in the modern day is because there's not really a right or wrong answer to the question that creates the conflict.
is just very exciting for me. But I will say that I think the lamest part of this movie is that the other characters just straight up suck. Cyclops is a very boring person.
I mean, I can sort of agree with that. I love Cyclops. He's one of my favorite characters in Marvel Comics, and I am
Optic
disappointed
Blast.
that Donut
Optic
Lord was not
Blast.
given more to do in this movie.
I'm only
Optic
just
Blast.
now learning this.
Optic
I'm a
Blast.
little disappointed
Optic Blast.
because I still think he looks very cool. Anna Paquin is doing her best as Rogue, but she's pretty stiff and awkward.
That's kind of part of the character, but okay.
And she was like a kid, so it's fine, I guess.
Hi,
but
Jubilee.
It's a little more noticeable. She does
That
get
Kitty
better as
Pryde
the
on the
movies
right?
go on, but she's also not really
I
in
don't
them as
know.
much later either. Unfortunately, Rogue's superpower kind of breaks the story a lot of the time,
Ow.
so she doesn't
Rogue's
really have
power is what makes Magneto seek her out.
Yeah, it kind of creates the story.
anything to do after this movie. Yeah, that's a problem that we're going to be encountering a lot later. Storm
Okay, go. Please explain that more later.
is also in this movie. She stands around and poses.
She's Xavier's right hand. Or left hand, depending on... You know
Rogue,
what?
Storm
Fucking Storm...
literally doesn't.
Storm
Doesn't even
and
need to move.
yeah, I was gonna
do what
say
she does.
she doesn't fucking have to, but you know, Storm and Cyclops are the fucking leaders of the goddamn team.
She
Yeah,
seriously
there's a
doesn't
reason
do
why
anything
Storm
in this
became the
movie.
leader of the
She's
X-Men
just
after
here
Cyclops
because,
pussied
well,
out
it's an X-Men
after the
movie.
Phoenix
She-
saga.
She literally drops the lightning strike that sends Toad off the Eiffel Tower, not the Eiffel Tower, fucking Statue of Liberty. Yeah, I got my French things mixed up. But go
barely
off.
has any lines either. One of her only
Okay.
lines is like one of the worst lines I've ever heard.
He's gonna complain about this, isn't
You
he?
know what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning? The same thing that happens to everything else.
That is
You can't say that this film takes itself completely seriously and then cut to that joke. While complaining about that, you know what, I'm gonna
doesn't
keep
make any
going.
sense. Anyway, let's talk about the plot real quick. In this movie, the X-Men have to stop
Yeah, why haven't you been talking about the plot more?
Magneto's evil super plan.
Why are you saying evil super... It is literally is an evil super plan. Why are you saying that in a mocking tone?
He uses this big machine to turn normal people into mutants,
Uh-huh.
which is just so silly.
No, it's not. No, the point of it is that Magneto wants people to be... Oh, he wants people to be more like them, and therefore...
He wants to force
But
genetic
he also,
mutation.
yeah, he
on-
wants to force genetic
onto
mutation
people.
onto the entire planet, and he doesn't care if it has negative consequences for them. It's not really a... You need to... Have you read the comic about the guy who turns people into dinosaurs? That's corny.
Oh shit, hold on. That's actually canon. So he runs his beta
Uh-huh.
test on this
Okay. So is it not corny because it was in the comic, or is it corny because... You know what? I don't know what your standards are, Marcus. I'm moving on.
senator that hates mutants.
Yes, his name is Senator Robert Kelly. You could make a joke about how he turns into a liquid and you need to keep him away from minors.
But what's silly is that after he mutifies the senator, he just leaves him alone. And
He leaves him alone to explore his own mutation and the horror of the revelation that he has become that which he hates. kind of like he does with Mystique later on when she becomes regular human. I won't say that X-Men 3 was a good movie, but that was one of the best parts of it, where they had that kind of... And I'm completely sure that that was an unintentional parallel.
In a jail cell. This is not a good plan. If he got...
It wasn't... It didn't matter.
powers that were anything like any of the other mutants that we have seen so far, he could easily break out and leave.
Like he does in this?
I like the initiative, but the execution needs some more work, so I'm gonna give...
Excuse me, he dies after that. You realize that Kelly died after that, right?
And Mystique takes his place.
Oh my god.
This plan a 6 out of 10. At the end of the day, this is a superhero flick where the bad guy makes a big machine that will kill all the innocent people.
You haven't established that, so if I hadn't seen the movie, I wouldn't know that.
And the good guys fly in and save the day.
Okay.
And if it wasn't for the genuinely good allegory for prejudice, this would be a pretty by-the-numbers movie.
Okay, so without the central conceit of the movie, the film wouldn't be any good. This is so strange. Like, this attitude that people have where it's like, oh, if you removed all of the things that make this movie what it is, it wouldn't be any good. Okay. Why do people say things like this? Why do people always say shit like, oh, if you took out all the things that make this movie good, it wouldn't be any good?
And as usual, I think a lot of the ensemble superhero movies like this would do better with less characters.
This movie kind of has too few characters, but whatever. This is an X-Men film, dude. The X-Men have loads of characters, and they use a handful of them.
And a little bit more focus on character development.
Development of what characters, Marcus? Because I thought you said you liked the development of some of them. I mean, you could have... There's only so much you can do with the runtime you've got. Do you want... Didn't you complain about Batman v Superman being 3 hours?
Leaves this movie feeling a little empty.
Yes, he did.
And I gotta say, that is something...
Hang on. No, it can't be both empty and overstuffed. That's not how this works.
That is not fixed with most of these movies. It's weird, though, because this really was, like, the first modern superhero movie.
Blade.
Is it fair to say this is cliche when this was the first one to have this structure? This led...
It's not even the same structure, dude. Fuck, if you're complaining about the structure of this movie as compared to, like, all of the other films that have followed, you're complaining about the fucking structure of the entire entertainment industry, because this is just how stories work. Things happen at the beginning that lead into a conflict, they start solving problems, comes big conflict at the end, ba-boom.
Led to Spider-Man, which led to Iron Man, which led to Avengers, and now look at us. Society is full of fucking nerds.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, X-Men. So I'm gonna wrap this up and give this,
Marcus, your
5.5
delivery
out of 10.
fucking sucks. 5.5 out of 5.5 out of 10. Okay.
Whatever. This took way too
Whatever
long.
you say, buddy. Moving on.
This took way too long. 13 minutes.
X2. I love when movies used to do this. Like, oh, we can't call it Terminator 2. We gotta call it T2. They'll know what it means. There's no...
No, it literally was called Terminator 2. It was just shortened to T2 on some of the posters. And why are you using a JPEG crushed? I'm not going to ask these questions anymore.
Oh, and by the way, this movie actually kind of goes hard. Yeah, everybody knows.
Okay, so you complain... Hang on. You complain about X-Men 1, but you don't... You say granted, X-Men 2 is great, but, like, why are...
knows that this movie is a vast improvement over the first one.
Okay, I'd almost wonder why you'd say that, considering you complained about all the things that were in X-Men 1 and now,
First
whatever.
movie gives you no context for a lot of the things that we see. This one...
We don't need a lot of context for that. You kind of explained why we didn't know, whatever.
One dives a little deeper into almost every aspect. Logan's origins are explored more, and we get to learn a little bit more about some of the characters that this series wants to focus on, like Jean Grey, and Bobby. And to start,
Okay.
I gotta say, I really like when a movie opens in a cool way. I think the last movie had a pretty decent opening with that really powerful Holocaust scene, but this one decides to go in a different direction.
I like that too.
Action-packed
I like both of
opening.
these
While
openings,
the
by
last
the way.
movie
These are
was really
great.
great on
Yeah.
the action. This one starts off with a sick-ass scene that establishes Nightcrawler as a badass. This scene is very sick, and it's a damn shame that for some reason Nightcrawler disappears after this movie.
You could have maybe explained that Alan Tudyk had a really bad reaction to the makeup and didn't want to come back, but,
Oncoming.
Oh yeah,
Alan
Alan
Cumming.
Cumming. I keep forgetting Alan Cumming, the guy from Spy Kids and Masterpiece Mystery. That guy had a bad reaction to the makeup and didn't want to come back. Just explain that. That's all you got to do.
As for the story, this movie features Logan Roy as the villain. And as a kid, I remember I didn't think this guy was that cool, and he wasn't as interesting as Magneto. But now, as a grown-up, I think he actually suits this movie pretty well. See, Magneto is your standard comic book villain.
Logan
but Stryker's
Roy.
somehow more menacing
Succession?
by just being like a normal guy.
Hang on,
At the
why
end
are
of the
you
day, to me,
referencing Succession? This is Brian fucking Cox.
Yeah.
Had the fucking Laurence Olivier winner. He's got a fucking Emmy and a Golden Globe. Oh, and you're fucking referencing Succession? Fuck, let's talk about how he was in The Music Man or Richard III. God damn, dude.
main threat to X-Men is humankind, so it's always effective to use a villain that represents that. Like with other films in this series, I haven't seen this movie since it came out, so I totally forgot the story.
Yeah, you're fucking stupid.
And as it stands, I think the narrative of this is much better paced than the last movie. The last one kind of just had the main characters waiting around until the story came to them.
I mean, I'm not really sure. You need to stop saying things that don't make sense in relation to things you've said otherwise.
But in this, the plot kicks off immediately.
Alex, that
with
would
the
imply
assassination
that
attempt on the president,
Alex, that would
followed by
imply
Charlie getting kidnapped.
that
And I've noticed
you'd
in
be
my
able to
recent
tape his
read
mouth
through of
shut.
X-Men, Charles Xavier gets kicked out of this story fairly frequently because I guess he's a little too OP and he would solve a lot of the conflict
Sometimes, but
too easily. And like I've said before, that is a problem that kind of permeates throughout all of these movies.
You used a bunch of shots of them taking Quicksilver out, and then Xavier wasn't taken out there. You maybe use something that represents what you're talking
X-Men
about.
all have very diverse superpowers, and that can be kind of hard to include in a story. Oh, you got a guy who can teleport anywhere.
Yeah?
That might make a story a little more complicated if you're not writing around him.
Okay.
Alternatively, you have someone like Wolverine, who's just a guy who can fight people.
Just a guy who can fight people who happens to have razor-sharp adamantium claws, regeneration abilities, heightened senses, and a metal skeleton.
Yeah, sure, whatever,
Yeah.
man.
And he's not very complicated, so he can be in any story. Rogue, however, has the superpower to take away other people's superpowers.
Yeah, and if they'd had the rights to Miss Marvel, they would have had the ability to give her those powers as well. Although back then, Miss Marvel's abilities mostly amounted to flying and super strength.
Let's put it this way, Alex. The porn parody of that would have Rogue and Miss Marvel engaging in a very hot lesbian makeout session.
She sucked her powers out through her cooch.
She could honestly solve conflicts a little too easily. As such,
Could she? Because she'd have to get there and she can still be killed.
in the first movie, she doesn't really get to use her powers.
Yeah, because there's not really a whole lot of opportunity
for them.
for her to do that. Did you forget about that, Marcus?
And I really see that as the writers of these movies kind of failing. Mutants kind of come and go in these movies, so you can't really get too attached to them.
You're reading X-Men comics. I have a feeling you probably know a little bit about that.
So yes, this is the first of many films where Charles Xavier is kicked out of the narrative because he is just too strong. But it works a little better in this movie because it means that our characters can actually work on their own, as opposed to in the last movie where they had to rely on him a bit more.
I don't know what you're complaining about anymore.
The one issue with the movie's faster pace is that we still don't get the best characterization for everybody.
We have like a million characters. The X-Men is... If we...
It's an ensemble thing.
Yeah, it's an ensemble thing. If we made the X-Men as small as you're suggesting they be, then we wouldn't have the X-Men. We'd have like the Fantastic Four. What the fuck is up with Marcus and wanting these superhero things to completely just drop their fucking the core premise so that they can do something that's completely off the grid, you know? What? Why?
Nightcrawler gets a lot of good characterization, but in his nice conversation with Storm, I can't help but think about how she still hasn't done anything. She's
You showed her doing something in the last movie, but whatever.
just a nothing character. She's just here. This series so far hasn't been the best at balancing each character, but I will say that this one is a big improvement over the last one. Logan gets a lot more to do in this movie, and we get to see him trying to balance his own goals with his need to help his new friends.
Yeah,
This one
that's cool.
includes him in the story a lot better, and there's a lot of times where Logan can kind of just feel like the guy who's here to fight stuff and look cool. So I appreciate when the movie actively includes him in the narrative. But one thing that definitely doesn't come across so great in this movie is the Logan and Jean romance.
It doesn't exist! Marcus, it's one-sided. That's the whole fucking point.
Does not exist. It's fiction.
Stony is fucking
and out of
haunting
nowhere. We're never
me.
Alex,
He's been rushed in out of nowhere. It was his obsession with her was shown in the last fucking one. Oh.
told or shown why Logan likes Jean. He just thinks she's hot.
She flashes by in his mind because she was the one who fucking freed him from the fucking experiments. Granted, that is in a future movie, but goddamn,
hindsight basically made that possible.
Marcus, he has flash. She's one of the only solid memories he has. That was shown. That was shown in the previous movie.
And I mean, I guess I could respect that, but this is a movie, so I need a little bit more than that.
That's
And she's in a
Mystique.
committed relationship with Scott,
That's
who
Jean.
is not really in this movie, so it comes across as a little bit more predatory in this one. Let's just say that you probably wouldn't see scenes like this in a superhero movie
Mystique.
nowadays. But despite a few shortcomings, I still think this movie does its best with what it has. I especially like that Magneto teams up with the X-Men, and he's gone from cartoonishly over-the-top villain to the X-Men's sassy gay uncle.
We love what you've done with your hair.
He's not gay.
Get it?
And honestly,
Get it? Because Ian
other than that,
McKellen's
I don't
gay.
really-
Because Ian McKellen's gay. Ian McKellen himself said that like he wasn't playing the character as gay.
Yeah.
It's like fucking George Takei said that, you know, he never played Sulu as gay, and he actually kind of complained about them making Sulu gay in recent material. And like Ian McKellen, he's whatever happened to him being like the fucking mustache? You said he was the mustache twirling villain. If anything, that's just him being a bit more mustache twirly. You know what? We're just gonna keep going.
Not much more to say about it. It's got better action, it has a more creative plot, and it's just a little more engaging and exciting. It's been a very long time since I've last seen this movie, and I had a pretty good time with it. And it leaves off in a way that lends pretty well to a sequel. So I'm gonna give this one a 7 out of 10.
Okay then.
Now we get to the worst of the trilogy.
Now we get to the
X-Men:
literally the
Last
worst
Stand.
film.
Terrible.
Please let me go.
No, that'd be Origins
Keep
Wolverine.
it up. I'll spray you in the face, bitch.
This is the movie.
That That wasn't even a bad line!
that kind of sent X-Men into a downward spiral for a little while.
Two bad movies,
You're
and
using
then we
that
got
as a literal, because that's a literal spiral, huh?
two
Oh.
bad movies, then we finally get some good one. Then we get a good one immediately after. Our Origins Wolverine is not a downward spiral.
After
Mm.
2 well-received and successful movies, we get one of the messiest superhero movies that have ever been made up to that point. Hey, I can fly! As strangely
That's the fastball special.
Sorry, I was thrown
He-
off by the Shrek audio
But,
clip.
you're fucking kidding me. He got thrown by fucking
Colossus.
Colossus. My God, are you stupid? We know the answer to that.
enough, this movie begins with something I did not expect to see in 2006. Young face CGI. As
Yeah, and it actually looks better than young face CGI they used in Pirates of the Caribbean 5.
expected, it looked
Or in Tron Legacy.
kind of weird, but
Frankly, I can't tell because your video quality is so shit.
honestly, for 2006, I'm surprised they even fucking tried. But unfortunately, we as a society know
Pretty
what
good.
Patrick Stewart is supposed to look like when he's younger. Because he's
That's what he looked like when he was
the
younger,
same
though.
for like 50 years. So this just looks
Yeah.
fucked up. But in the
He did... Marcus, it doesn't look as bad as Samuel L. Jackson did in Captain Marvel. Because,
Don't forget,
you know,
Alex, he actually likes Captain Marvel.
the funny thing is, we also know what Samuel L. Jackson was supposed to look like, because he was in movies at the time. And you know
Yeah.
what? Patrick
There was
Stewart
this little
here,
film-
it's called Pulp Fiction!
Yeah,
Motherfucker!
and he had a fro.
Yeah. Where's my Fury fro, Marvel? Cowards!
Cowards. Yeah.
in this flashback,
indeed.
Chuck and Magnus are going to visit Jean Grey.
Chuck and Mac. Okay.
This one focuses a lot on Jean and her Phoenix bullshit. But if you guys have
Yes, because it's based on the Dark Phoenix
been
saga.
paying close attention, we have not gotten the strongest characterization from anybody.
You ignored all of it. But
Yeah.
whatever.
Let alone Jean Grey. We haven't really gotten strong characterization for anybody who isn't Logan, Magnus, or Charles. And
His name isn't fucking Magnus. His name is
And-
Eric Lensher. In the comics, his name is Magnus.
Yeah. I
This
was
ain't the
gonna say,
fucking comic, is it?
Yeah, this is the film.
I can now say, after having read at least some X-Men comics, that I'm not really into Jean Grey. There are way more
Oh.
female mutants that are much more interesting than Jean Grey. And right
Okay.
after Jean dies, she's replaced with Kitty Pryde, who is a much more compelling character. Hell,
Okay. I mean, I like Kitty Pryde too, but, like, I wouldn't say that she's... This is like comparing apples to oranges. These are two completely different characters.
interesting. But no, Jean has this big, important X-Men story about her, so obviously we gotta adapt it for the big screen.
Yeah, it's almost like it's one of the most iconic fucking stories in the history of comics and television.
Alex, before we go on, can I quote the bit from the 90s cartoon?
Please feel free.
God, please do it. I can't. That is verbatim how it's delivered in the show.
Jean twice, and guess what? It doesn't work. But
I mean, it doesn't work. It doesn't work has nothing to do with the fucking comic because they didn't adapt the
I'm
comic.
gonna get into that much later. But anyway, after that, we get our second opening scene, featuring some pretty gruesome body horror of Archangel cutting off his own
He's not Archangel. He doesn't become Archangel until fucking Apocalypse.
Yeah, and even then
He's just regular ass Angel.
Yeah, and even then he gets as a retcon into being Mulder or in the year
His
where
oh
this
no
scene takes place.
no see that was Warren Worthington the first, not Warren Worthington the second or the third. See,
What?
it skips a generation. You know, the first had the wings, the The second didn't, and then the third. I'm making shit up to
Yes,
excuse
you are.
Fox's bad continuity.
Fucking wings with a knife. I gotta say, this trilogy has been much darker than
You know, I will give it credit. That was a pretty good
I've
scene.
expected, and it's kind of jarring. I mean, I haven't really even seen much more than a drop of blood in a modern Marvel movie, and in this movie,
More than a drop
That's
of blood in a modern Marvel movie. I'm
You can thank the
I,
MPAA for that
yeah, you
one,
can thank
Marcus.
the Motion Picture Association for that, but I'm almost certain that's not
I'm
true.
watching a child mutilate himself.
Okay, yeah, because there was a bunch of Thanos blood
I'm
everywhere.
not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just
All
saying
that for a
didn't
drop of
expect it.
blood.
But after that, we get a third opening scene.
Yeah, this was one of the best scenes in the entire fucking movie, and the fact that they, kind of didn't do anything with it is disappointing.
Remember earlier when I said that a good opening can hook the viewer? This is basically the exact opposite. 3 scenes.
Okay, no. See, I loved the opening scenes of this film, and I wish they'd have built on them. Actually, as gotta put my hand up here, as somebody who watched this movie when it came out and was incredibly disappointed by it, the opening sequences were the thing that hooked me. And you can go back and look at our X-Men videos. Believe those were still over on Bright Steel Stars, though. Oh, so you'd have to go over there. You can go and look at our X-Men videos where I explain this, but in short, the opening sequences here do a lot to explain why I liked the movie, and then they kind of fall off after that, because once they'd gotten through all of their good ideas, they stopped.
Yeah.
Scenes that make us feel nothing is
Sure, yeah.
significantly worse than one strong scene.
They were 3 strong scenes, Marcus. You just said one of them was strong.
In this scene, we see a vision of
In
the
the
future
not
where the
too
X-Men are at
distant
war,
future,
and it's surprisingly
next
kinda
Sunday,
goofy.
AD,
Like Wolverine is joking around, and I don't
was
really
a
know if this
guy
supposed
named
to be
Logan.
dire or not. Oh,
Very
wait,
different
it
from you
wasn't
and
a
me.
cold open, it was modern day. But
You
but
worked
you
at
told me it was
Xavier's
in the
Institute.
future. The movie
Just
lied to
another
me.
face in a yellow
You're
jumpsuit.
allowed to do that.
So the conflict in this movie is that the government wants to send out a cure for the
You know,
mutants.
Alex, I ended
Some
up
of the
seeing an
mutants are like, yeah,
exclusive
I want to
clip
be a
from Ant-Man for the Conan O'Brien show, and for some reason it cuts to a completely different movie about some rando kid in a
Oh my
wheelchair that
god.
gets thrown off a cliff.
Oh man. I somewhere I have that movie.
I'm sorry.
I
I'm
got it.
sorry. It
I
was
got it from a Dollar Tree when I was very, very young. I had no idea what it was.
real boy, and some are like, fuck you, I still want to shoot lightning.
Yeah, this is a conversation that a lot of people have had online.
Yeah.
You know, weather wizard versus girl who kills everything she touches.
Magneto himself is obviously in the latter camp, but my issue that has slowly arisen with each of these movies is that Magneto isn't really the most threatening villain.
The man can
What?
literally change the Earth's rotation if he wants to.
Yeah.
But okay.
Okay, whatever you say, douchebag.
After watching him bumble his way through his plan in the first movie, and then spending the whole second movie being sassy and petty,
I'm just struggling to remember any of that because I have a feeling that's not what happened.
I cannot find this man threatening now that he's back to being a villain.
Now that he's back to being a villain as opposed to what he was in first and second.
Sorry, I still see him as a sassy gay old man.
Didn't he try? Yeah, no, he tried to kill all of the humans at the end of the second movie, motherfucker.
Yeah.
You can't just gloss over that.
Man, I love this scene where Mystique loses her powers and he's just like, sorry, you're in your flop era, honey.
I'm sorry.
What? What does flop
Sure.
era mean?
Is that referring? I mean, what? What is Rebecca Romijn star in a bunch of movies that flop?
I don't. I'm gonna keep going.
You're not one of us anymore.
I haven't heard any of my gay friends
I've
use
never
this
heard
phrase.
this from any gay person. No.
Anyway, just a few.
Are all of his jokes about old Magneto just gonna be on Ian McKellen's sexuality? 'Cause if
That
so, this does
fucking hurt.
Alex,
I don't know
it,
why, but it
if
fucking
all of
hurt.
Marcus's jokes on Magneto are of Ian McKellen's sexuality, this kind of comes off as homophobic.
Mm.
A few scenes
Well,
later,
but
Jean comes back to life and kills Cyclops.
Cyclops isn't actually dead, fun fact. We didn't see a body.
Yeah. This movie's really fucked up. He dies off.
I mean, the movie is fucked up, but look, here's the problem. Here's the fucking problem. We didn't see him die. We only see the visor. We don't know where he went.
Well, here's the
too.
thing with
When
Alex, based on what we could see, she is exploding him with her psychic powers.
No. That's just her giving him a really good hand job.
Alex,
Yeah?
I don't think you were ever told this.
What?
Sometimes things are born. They live and they stop forever.
Hmm.
Can't say that with a straight face. You want me to just show you the clip from Scanners?
Is it the head exploding thing?
Yep.
No, I know.
I saw this as a kid, I swore it had to be a joke. The movie already
Yeah, no, I fucking hated how they removed him.
lied to us once before, so how are we supposed to believe this? But no, it's true. He just dies, which is insane. It completely removes the chance of Scott being an interesting character. Like I said before, he doesn't do anything in the first movie.
That's not true, but
And then he
okay.
gets kicked out of the second movie to make room for the people we actually like.
That's also not true, but okay.
And now he just dies.
Yeah, because he was going off to film Superman, where he also didn't do shit.
And Superman, and in Superman, and keep in mind, Superman returns, he also gets really cucked.
Yeah, that's
So then he just
fucking
so then he
worse than
decides
this.
So then he decides to move to Montana, in a place called Green Hills, where he gets into
Listen,
a wholesome relationship with Tika Sumpter, who
brown
is not
sugar.
trying to cuck him.
Why does it taste so good?
And we don't even know how or why. We don't even see it happen.
Yeah,
The explanation of Jean's survival is that
You know, that was
her
fucking
powers
lame.
wrapped her in a cocoon of telekinetic energy.
That is the dumbest thing that I've ever heard.
it's not, but I can definitely agree with you that it is very, very stupid.
Yeah.
Okay, believe it or not, that's also canon, actually. So now,
Not really. You're taking that dramatically out of context.
at the third movie, we have an info dump.
It was
on the
also
powers of
far
the
better
Phoenix.
explained.
And let me just say, this is a lot to lay out.
It's not an info dump about it. You are wrong. Because the movie is also wrong.
On us at once.
Yes.
In the comic books, the Phoenix storyline is one that was built up over a long period of time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for actually explaining that.
But here we have exactly one movie in the trilogy that is devoted to it. And honestly,
Yeah,
it's the
okay.
B plot. It's not
Yeah,
even the most
kinda.
important part of the movie.
Yeah, the
I have
fact
no
that they did
idea
that
why
is
this movie
very
is trying
stupid.
to tell two
It is.
completely disconnected stories. But anyway, in the next scene, Jean Grey kills Professor Xavier.
Yeah, except not
Oh.
really.
Up. If we hardly had any compelling
That
characters
is not the
before,
order of
now-
events.
Yeah, you kind of need to do things in the right order.
I fucking hate this movie, but I know for a fact
How-
that's not how it happened.
He's
My little sister
he's
has
being
watched this
incredibly
movie.
uncharitable to a shitty movie that is easy to critique.
Yeah.
I don't even know how that's possible.
We
Yeah,
really
it's
don't
like
have
Cinema
shit.
Sins
All we have
critiquing
is
Black Widow.
Logan
Yeah.
and Storm. The movie
Was that supposed to be funny?
He's barely halfway over by this point, and we didn't even have time to mourn Cyclops. By this point, I was still convinced he was alive. This is not the way you kill a character. And they've done it twice. There's also this little moment that I find...
Twice. No, Xavier's death, 1 happened on screen, and 2 wasn't permanent. Like, he wakes up at the... He wakes up in the body of his... He wakes up in the body of his fucking brain-dead identical twin in a post-credits scene. And I'm not making this up.
Hilarious, where Pyro is like, you should have been the one to let me kill Charles Xavier. And Magneto says this.
Charles Xavier did more for mutants than you'll ever know.
And this is just so baffling. Multiple times in this...
No! No! Baffling, but one of the things that he explains that Charles Xavier is his rival, his opponent, and also his oldest friend. One of the only people he actually respects. Somebody who, even though he has disagreements with, he's willing to team up with in a time... He wouldn't fucking let Pyro do that. Not in a million fucking years. Charles Xavier, as Magneto says in this movie, has done more for mutant kind than anybody will ever know.
He has proven that he will sacrifice anyone. It was just 1 movie ago where he left Charles Xavier to die.
In service of a much greater goal that would have actually won him the fucking decades-long struggle he's been on and end his mission that he's been on since after World War II once and for all. There's a difference between sacrificing a knight to capture the king and sacrificing your queen to get to take a fucking pawn. Right? Am I going crazy here, or is he just complete... No. Actually, hang on. You're citing a scene that you completely excised from the previous film in your criticism. Oh my god, he criticized last movie for him quote-unquote turning good, and now he's criticizing the way you're bringing up the fact that he wasn't totally on Xavier's side in that movie as a criticism. Now, I guess these scenes don't exist until you need them to.
But now he cares.
Really?
He's also talking to a dumbass kid.
He's so inconsistent.
No, that's not inconsistent.
Onto in this movie at this point is Logan, and he has no horse in this race. He has no stakes in this plot, other than the fact that he likes Jean Grey for some reason that we are.
I mean, he's also one of the idiots who lives on this planet, so he kind of doesn't want the planet to be fucking blowed up by the fucking mutants. But
Alex, I hate to tell you this, but blowed up is not an actual term.
Oh, I know. That's why I used it. I thought it was funny.
It's blown up.
Oh, I know. I'm from the South. I can say blowed up and have it be correct.
Never privy to.
Am I just labeled a grammar or Nazi here?
Fuck 9.
Subtlety at all anymore. In the last movie, our heroes convinced the fucking president of the United States that mutants aren't a threat.
Yeah, no, that's...
Not really.
I mean, no, yeah, I can kind of see how you'd get that out of it, but we're also... Yeah, let's just fucking go.
Uh-oh, that means that we don't have a story anymore.
Yeah, except no, the president doesn't have all of the power, you stupid fucking retard.
So now the government is like, fuck it, we gotta get rid of the mutants and kill Magneto. Like, alright, fuck me.
You do realize the president changes, right?
last movie doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So since there are no X-Men left, Magneto and his goons have to get rid of the mutant cure. And his goons are like, Magneto, we have to get over to that island. That's where the cure is held. And his solution is to fly the Golden Gate Bridge over to the island.
Okay, I mean, he can do that. It's not exactly that difficult.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to build bridges.
I actually like that line.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Marcus, you don't get to criticize people's choices in comedic lines, timing, etc.
Remember when I said that subtlety is completely gone? Yeah, I wasn't joking. Now Magneto is throwing flaming cars at the X-Men. Like,
Hang on, I thought you said he wasn't a threatening villain anymore.
why do they have to be on fire? What's the difference between getting hit by a flying car and a
One of them
It's
is
almost
cooler.
like Pyro. Yeah, and also Pyro is just adding overkill to the situation, because after all, there ain't no
Yeah.
kill like overkill.
flying car that's on fire? And man, look at this pathetic hero lineup. We have a guy who has to carry so much of this movie that he doesn't even have time to act like Wolverine.
Are you going to qualify that statement?
He's not. We should know this by now.
I need to stop asking that
In
question.
any of these movies, another guy,
Except for
who
the
just got
fact that
introduced
she
in this
took charge, or
movie,
when Charles was dead. Beast has been established throughout the film.
Yeah, and saying that he just showed up is not a criticism, Marcus.
No.
Colossus, who is also here.
Right?
Colossus
was in this since the first movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's been there since the beginning.
Whole time.
Yeah, he fucking was. What of it?
Had any lines? I can count his lines on one hand.
Okay. That's not a criticism, by the way.
And I don't need that
Colossus in this film series has just been
impossible to get
up till Deadpool has been a man of few words.
Yeah.
In this final battle.
And now
again,
and then we get a former
ex-lady
as then we get an ex-lady as Kitty Pryde.
Oh my god, why is Jean Grey here? He asks when Magneto was clearly fucking present when he was. Oh my god, it's in the movie, Marcus. Magneto is fucking.
Haven't justified her inclusion in this story at all.
Of all the criticisms to levy at this film, the fact that Magneto is kind of using her as a tool to his own ends is not one that I would have fucking picked, Marcus.
After she killed Charles, there really hasn't been anything for her to do.
Right, except that she's kind of threatening to end the entire world.
These two plot lines didn't need to be slammed together like this.
Oh, I agree, but your points are not connected here.
But anyway, in the end, they decide to nerf Magneto and turn him into a normal human and get rid.
Not forever. You know this because it is both in this movie and in the next several. God fucking damn it.
This does nothing to him.
I feel like I'm going crazy.
Rid of his powers, which honestly is a pretty good fate for him in this trilogy. It kind of harkens back to his plan in the first movie. But then the screenwriters are like, wait, even though the main story is over and the bad guy's been defeated, we forgot to use Jean. So yeah, then she decided.
You're cutting out context here. The context doesn't make it much better, but the context makes it less stupid than you're making it out to be.
Fly around and Thanos.
Yeah, but then we all
Thanos everything.
Yeah,
she did it first, Marcus.
Yeah.
The
context of the film.
This man's motivations are being written by a child.
Save me.
I love you.
What? No.
She's the only solid memory he has. He's been obsessed with her since the first movie. You should know this. That scene was in that film.
Oh, you love her? You don't even know her.
Yeah, that's kind of the whole point.
That gets worse the longer it goes on. This movie's so bad, it kind of makes the second one not seem so good. Luckily, though, the best thing about this movie is that it's short. And honestly, this first trilogy is a perfect example of how the X-Men movies go.
Hang on, short? The movie feels really fucking long. Whatever.
Some are painfully average, some are pretty good but not amazing, and some are butt-ass garbage. This movie is goofy and not intentionally so. And overall,
oh no, there is some intentional goof in there.
And this one is so bad that I'm gonna throw it on the worst superhero movie tier list. So,
hang on. I gotta rewind that.
Intentionally so. And overall, I don't really think it worked very well. And this one is so bad that I'm gonna.
Okay, so hang on. So I'm gonna go through here. Suicide Squad is the absolute worst. Marcus, you're putting it at whatever?
Yeah.
How is Suicide Squad... I know you've watched worse movies than this. Suicide Squad is the absolute worst. Batman v Superman and The Amazing Spider-Man 2 are on. I never want to watch this again. Man of Steel is on the whatever tier, which is where you're putting this. But then you have Catwoman on delicious garbage. Which means it's better than Man of Steel, TASM 2, BVS, and Studio Squad. Daredevil I can kind of see liking. Venom, I wouldn't say, delicious garbage. Like, it rests in one of those weird territories, and why is Aquaman on this list at all?
Yeah.
Like, even the people who
Aquaman
fucking hate the DCEU like Aquaman. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Throw it on the worst superhero movie tier list. So yeah, 3 out of 10. Time for the next one.
I want to look up what his lowest rated MCU film was, because I guarantee you whatever it was
Hulk.
not.
I think it was Incredible Hulk.
Did he rate it lower than this? I don't remember.
I think he gave it like a 4 out of 10. I want to say.
Huh.
Anyway.
First class, just jump straight to First Class.
So yeah, that last trilogy was kind of.
It's not like there was a movie released in between these two.
Age of X-Men movies, because after X-Men 3 was X-Men.
I would like to forget about Origins Wolverine as well.
Yeah, there are parts of X-Men Origins Wolverine I'd like to forget about, but you know what I'd also like to remember is how fucking Wolverine shit was everywhere when that came out.
Is so bad that I almost made a worst superhero movies video on it.
Why didn't you?
Last year. But then I decided I was going to do everything X-Men related in one video, so I kind of just put it on the shelf.
Okay, why don't you just do one of... You should have done this review between these two. We've already established that...
I would do that one next, because it is the next movie.
Yeah, sane men would do that.
Together in the next video.
That's a stupid move, Marcus. It's not a trilogy. They're built upon each...
This one, we are just going to cover the actual X-Men movies. You know, the ones with the X-Men. So naturally, that brings us to X-Men First Class. The last X-Men movie that I personally have watched. And I gotta say, this movie's pretty fucking good. After watching all of these, I think I can safely say that this is my favorite X-Men movie. And finally, after all
respectable
this time,
choice,
we finally get the one thing I've asked for. Good characters. This movie is basically an origin story for Charles and Eric, and it not only fleshes out their relationship.
Yes, maybe you could explain the fact that it was originally a X-Men Origins Magneto film. In fact, you could have dovetailed off of Origins Wolverine that way. If you'd formatted the video correctly.
But their personalities as well. Charles is normally a pretty stoic and frankly boring character in these movies. But since he's younger here, we can see him at a very formative time in his life. I like that one of his first scenes shows him using his powers to hit on women at a bar. It immediately catches your attention because it's a
he's not really using his powers to hit on her. He's using his knowledge of mutation.
To relate to his fellow mutants. This movie has some cute montages, and the best one is where he trains his first batch of X-Men. We went from a movie.
Oh, I appreciate that. I like. Yeah, I like that too.
Look, it's our soon-to-be Lex Luthor.
Yeah, you know what? I literally, legitimately can't wait to see how Marcus fucks up his review of this film.
Well, and this one really puts the X in X-Men by making Charles the main character.
Okay,
It's such
yeah,
a simple
okay, good,
and
good.
effective idea, and I'm surprised more stories don't take this approach. Oh, and also,
Some of them did.
Mystique is his adopted sister.
Yeah.
Remember when they mentioned that? Yeah, that
No,
ever-present issue
didn't
of
ever have an
continuity
opportunity
of
to come up,
movies is
actually.
still present here. In the last 3 movies, Mystique was just a lady who did karate, but now she's a whole ass
Lady who did karate and also happened to be blue and shapeshift. Tilting my head in confusion here, Marcus. It's kind of in her powers.
character. She didn't get a lot of time to do much more than looking sexy in the other movies, but now
She beat people up and she transformed into other people.
her conflict with her role in
It was actually kind of a big point, a plot point in the fucking movie, but you know.
society is explored a bit more.
Also, it's funny that Nicholas Hoult is, he was friends with a bald guy in the X-Men films, and now he's going to be a bald guy.
I particularly like the subplot with her and Hank
And he's
debating
gonna
on whether they should
and
hide their
his
physical
casting
mutations.
as
And in
as Lex Luthor is gonna make people apologize to Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah.
this one,
Perhaps
we
we
get
were
to see
too
what
harsh
she
on
sees in
you.
Magneto and why she would side with him. But speaking of improved characters, by far the most improved character here is Magneto. In the other movies, he's a megalomaniacal freak who doesn't seem to even like mutants. He treats
I mean, probably because the people that he was having to team up with... By the way, you didn't even fucking mention Juggernaut. But
Yeah.
the
You
fact
didn't
that...
mention the walking meme machine.
Yeah, it was like one of the most legendary lines in all of X-Men 3, one of the only things that people still quote about the movie.
everybody with this level of disrespect to
Not-
the point where I don't really see him as a mutant freedom fighter.
Okay, so he's not really a mutant freedom fighter, he's a little bit of a mutant supremacist. A lot of a mutant supremacist sometimes, but, the point is that these fucking gangsters are literally beneath him.
Yeah.
They're fucking stupid, and he's not afraid to call them out for it.
He doesn't like anybody. It's very
Probably because he's surrounded by jackasses.
hard to understand why anybody would side with him here. He's very, very clearly wrong and crazy.
I'm speechless. This is a very interesting read. I would love to have been in the room with him when he actually watched these films, because I like to ask him how he came to these conclusions.
But in this movie, he actually seems like a well-rounded character. His motivations are actually clear, and for once, you kind of agree with him. And that's when
For
Magneto
once, it's not like the whole
Has he not
point of the
has he not heard the
first 2 films was
meme?
that he had a point.
Did he forget that there was a meme called Magneto was right?
best when you can see his perspective.
That was directly
Make the villain
quoted
a character
in
that you kinda sorta
in
don't think
97?
is wrong.
Yeah.
It's very simple, and I'm glad that these movies finally get it right. I also love how the duality of these two characters is explored in creative ways. In one scene, we see Eric ordering a beer and then killing Nazis that ruined his life. Right after, it cuts to Charles downing a beer at a party full of people that like him.
Hey,
That's
Marcus,
out
you
of
actually
order.
managed to pull out the 2 things that are actually happening in the film. Congratulations. You did something
Let's go.
right for once. The parallels between our 2 main characters. Hey.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you saying?
Nothing.
Oh, sorry.
It's a good juxtaposition that shows how their environment has changed their lives, how their lives are similar, and if circumstances were just a little different, they may have ended up following different paths. I'd also be a fool to forget to mention that the 2 characters are being portrayed by
If you want to find out how their circumstances could have been different if their lives had followed slightly different paths, go over to Ultimation on fanfiction.net and look up X-Men First Class
2 crazy
and Secret Origins Magneto.
good actors. Patrick Stewart
And Captain Rogers and the Wonder Woman.
Stewart and Ian McKellen had very
Yeah.
good chemistry with each other, and now they are being replaced by Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy. The thing is, they don't really need to remind us exactly of Charles and Eric from the other movies. They're doing their own thing.
Well, they're kind of doing their own thing, but they are... The most important thing is that they are playing the same characters at different points in their lives, and they are very much informed by who the characters are, and they're not trying to do something dramatically different from what the other actors did, you know?
Which works better in my opinion, because I see this as less of a prequel and more of a reimagining.
That's incorrect, but whatever.
Because if you see this as a true prequel, your brain might melt when you
I watched it as a prequel, and my brain didn't melt.
try to connect it to the previous movie.
Yeah.
I mean, your brain probably will melt if you try and square the X-Men continuity, because, you know, there are 3 different Kitty Prydes, 3 different, well, maybe 2 different Kitty Prydes, I can't remember. 2 different Kitty Prydes, 2 different Colossuses, 2 different, Juggernauts, and, like, 3 different Jubilees, so.
Remember, I saw it as kind of a
And Warren Worthington III changes ages.
soft reboot.
Mm-hmm.
Soft reboot, and it works best when you watch it with that mindset. And this
No, it
movie
doesn't.
is a vast improvement over the previous trilogy in about every way. For one,
Okay.
it's much better at balancing tone. The other movies kind of felt like they were embarrassed to be superhero movies.
No, we've already been over
But
that.
this movie in particular is great at balancing a mature story with comic book silliness. That's not to say the movie's
What?
perfect. There are still a few corny
Comic
lines.
books, but it's...
You should be Professor X, and you should be Magneto.
Okay, but, like, one of them is his name, and the other one is literally what he does. Which is kind of how they were named in the comics. It's... People refer to people by their initials all the time in real life.
The Wolverine cameo is cute, but it goes on just a little too long.
No, it literally, it's gone in a flash.
Yeah.
I really don't understand why these movies are so obsessed with Wolverine. He shows up.
He
even
shows
when
up
The story doesn't need
literally
it.
once.
January Jones cannot act to save her life in this movie.
You are fucking stupid.
And this movie also
That he
kills
is.
the only X-Man whose power is to not die.
Okay, but, you know, the way that they killed him is kind of... The way that they killed him actually kind of makes a certain degree of sense. I know Darwin's powers are kind of weird, but if you're going to kill him any given way, oh... I don't know. I'm baffled. It's like he read the meme criticisms people made about this film. And, I'm just gonna keep going because this is dumb.
Each of us will face a choice. Be enslaved.
Oh my god, that's racist.
You do realize that Sebastian Shaw is a literal Nazi, right?
Clearly he doesn't.
They showed he was the fucking chief medical officer at fucking Auschwitz.
And of course, the last scene in this movie is so unintentionally hilarious.
Now, the main problem area is up here. This area is not good either. I hate this, but I'm mainly worried about this.
You're
I'm Markiplier.
complaining. You're complaining about. Hang on, I've seen the original video that this is taken from. You could have made this so much. I don't fucking.
But despite that, I think this movie
Complaining
kinda rocks
about comic
anyway.
accuracy.
It's well directed and has a
Sure.
lot of style. And finally, we get an X-Men movie with yellow jumpsuits. And would you
They're
prefer
not yellow.
spandex? Yeah.
Those also aren't yellow spandex.
Yes, I would. It looks much cooler.
That's yellow. That is very clearly not spandex.
I also gotta say that by far this movie has the best climax of them all. Every character is utilized so well. And
Yeah, it's a
crazy
great
how
movie.
much more invested I am in this relatively simple final conflict than I was in the big, dumb, explosive final battle of the last movie. Magneto lifting a bridge is pretty lame because I'm not invested in his story. Magneto lifting a submarine in this movie is moving because this whole film built up to it naturally, even if by comparison it is a smaller thing he's doing. This film basically just exists to prove that you can make a good X-Men movie. So yeah, it's not even a question. This one's my favorite that I've watched so far, and I haven't really seen any of the other films in this quadrology, so I'm actually pretty interested to see where we go from here. So yeah, I'm gonna give this an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
I'm as surprised as anybody else. I like.
Please tell me you've at least seen the Wolverine, because otherwise the next film isn't going to make any fucking sense.
This one a lot.
That's a pretty low rating to give that, especially considering how much you praised it.
These last 3 movies are ones that I have never seen before. And this one in particular is the one that I know the least about. I haven't seen the trailer, and I don't even know who's in it. I read the comic it's based on, but other than that, I went in completely blind. And
how did you not watch this movie when it came out?
Thrown into the distant future where the X-Men are hunted and killed by the Sentinels. And I think this movie's version of the Sentinels works pretty well. They have the ability to change to adapt to whatever mutant they're fighting, and it makes them genuinely
based off of the Wolverine and the X-Men version of the Sentinels.
Sworn to avenge, condemned to hell. Yeah.
Movies use the Mass Effect nanomachine future tech design, and I've
the future ones do.
Ragged on it in movies before, but I like that the design of the Sentinels actually
I love the Sentinel design
animation is
in
meant
this
to
movie.
Mirror Mystique's transformation.
Yeah!
I think it's pretty clever as far as the design goes, and it works towards making them more
like they've been studying
as
mutants
for,
for a long time.
The epic grand finale that X-Men 3 wanted to be. This film has a sense of finality to it, as it brings back every character we've seen so far.
Except for the ones who were dead.
It crafts this time travel
Except for some of the ones who were dead who came back.
narrative that can fit in all these characters from different eras. And it's actually pretty nice to come back and see these characters, even though I've criticized them in the past. In this movie, they have to go back in time and stop this scientist named Trask from being assassinated and kicking off this anti-mutant war.
Yeah, because they kind of fucked up when they killed Kelly in the first film, but,
and in the original Days of Future Past story, they send Kitty back. And it's a great story for fleshing out her character, since she was pretty new to the team back then.
Excuse me?
And this is the story arc where I was really sold on her, and she's since become one of my favorite X-Mans. But in this movie, I gotta say, I do like that they send Logan back. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because he's the only one who would have been around at the time. The movie kind of explains
This
that.
film series
On
has
top,
kind of a
and also he would have, he was the only one who would have been able to recover from being sent back in time.
Mm-hmm.
Because Charles wanted to do that, but his mind would not have been able to handle it.
Yeah, his brain would have been fucked.
And while I think that's a detriment in movies that we're going to talk about in the next video,
that movie is his origin story. The rest of the shit, the non-Wolverine shit, is why that movie sucks.
I think it's actually acceptable here, because he really has been the main character of most of these stories, so it's nice to give him one final team-up to end things off. And this film is good for people who have been trying to pay attention to the previous ones, but like all X-Men movies, it is very selective with the continuity it wants to preserve. Like, we saw Tony in the first movie, but now he's here in the 70s.
I don't think that's the same. I was gonna say, first off, I don't think that's the same character.
And he somehow looks older. And
second, yeah.
We took away Professor Xavier's legs in the last movie.
You do realize that Charles Xavier has the ability to, like, render himself as appearing like he can do things.
What?
He can create images, Marcus.
But we kind of need him to walk again for plot convenience. So now he takes a magic serum that can temporarily restore his spine.
Yeah.
No,
that's not what happened.
No. Oh, the drug in question and removes his powers while giving him the ability to walk.
Yeah.
When he stops taking the drugs, that's when he starts to lose the ability to walk again.
Gee, that kind of medical advancement would be fucking world-changing. It's a shame that stops existing after this movie.
Also, kind of... He needs his powers, Marcus. With great power comes great responsibility, and he can't just shirk that responsibility because he likes to walk.
The funniest one, though, is that in this movie, Trask is played by Peter Dinklage. In X-Men 3, he's played by this man.
Am I alone in this, or didn't none of y'all notice he was white?
So anyway, this...
I mean,
Different timelines.
First off, different timelines. Second, that could be his grandson. For fuck's sake. Do we remember?
Who knows who Peter Dinklage got with?
Peter Dinklage has that mighty eagle dick.
This story starts off with a pretty straightforward time heist where our heroes go back in time to stop Mystique from assassinating the guy who invented the Sentinels.
That's not a time heist. The time heist is them freeing Magneto from the prison.
And I gotta say, the movie gets really interesting once everything goes to shit. The story kind of throws us for a loop in the middle where the assassination does get thwarted, but new problems arise because of it.
Okay.
All hell kind of breaks loose, and I love not knowing where this story is going to go next. This is a very different kind of story. None of the mutants are getting along. Normal humans aren't even sure if mutants are real yet, so their prejudices are still forming. And we are directly shown the consequences of our hero's failure, so we know the constant threat. This one ups the ante as far as the spectacle
Hi,
goes.
Bishop.
When the writers actually know what to do with a mutant, they use their powers in pretty creative ways. In every single one of these, I'll say that Magneto is probably the most consistent as far as showing his powers in ways that you wouldn't even think are possible. But in this movie, this is especially apparent with Quicksilver. Quicksilver in this series makes the Quicksilver in the MCU look like an absolute joke. Here he has personality, and we get to see his powers used in one of the best scenes in the franchise. Before I watch this,
I am so happy that Marcus isn't complaining about this scene.
Yeah.
I had a feeling he might, but you know what? I also have a feeling he might complain about it in the other one.
Me, bro, wait until you see the Quicksilver scene, and I admit, I was not disappointed. I didn't really fully get why people were so excited that this guy shows up in WandaVision, but now that I've experienced him here, I'm pretty upset that he was wasted as this cheap tease in that show.
Well, welcome to my world.
A little too good because you never see something this cool ever again. But overall,
except in
This
Apocalypse.
movie is actually pretty dope, and it sucks that this and X2 are directed by a massive piece of shit. It's very hard to watch anything nowadays without encountering at least one bad person.
Well, that's why I don't give a shit.
To the making of a movie. It's not just up to one bastard. But it's safe to say that the directing in these movies has never really been the strong suit. And to be honest, the best thing in these new movies
also
has been
hang on
the performances.
The directing in these movies wasn't
their strong suit.
Wasn't their strong suit. Bryan Singer, despite his lack of work ethic and sexual misconduct, is a fine director. He's a fantastic director.
Seeing Hugh
like the fuck you showed some of his shots. It's fucking absurd. Go watch the House pilot.
It's fun to see a seasoned and
he directed that
Logan teaching a young misguided Charles. It's a nice little twist on what we saw in the first movie. And I like seeing McAvoy and Patrick Stewart act in the best scene
me too.
in the whole movie. This is the kind of stuff that makes time travel fun in comic book stories. And if I had to come up with some criticisms, I'd say that this movie spends a little too much time pontificating on hope and the future of mutant kind. Yeah, this is all very nice, but we've been talking about this stuff in every X-Men movie.
Almost like it's a central theme of the entire fucking franchise or something. What's next? Are you gonna complain about Superman standing up for truth, justice, and the American way?
So I kind of want to see something new. And I gotta say that even though the middle act
like
of this
that
movie
one tool
kind of excited me,
on
it
social
doesn't
media
really pay off as much as I'd like. I think this story definitely peaks in the first half. It loses a lot of steam after the halfway point, but it's still far from a bad story. I still think First Class is a much better movie from beginning to end, but I was not at all disappointed by the end of this one. I particularly like that this one feels like the grand finale of the X-Men movie series. This one is definitely the most ambitious X-Men movie I've seen so far, and I liked watching it. So I'm gonna give this one a 7 out of 10. Yeah, that seems fair.
Okay.
Now we get X-Men Apocalypse.
Is it just me, or do these intros kind of feel like the Doctor Who intro?
I mean, kind of, but not really. You're literally showing footage from the... Marcus, you're showing footage from the 2004 Doctor Who show. You will note that X-Men came out in 2000, 4 years before Doctor Who. Oh, wow.
That's like the same shit. So anyway, the last two X-Men movies were pretty good.
Oh, you're using
I
it from the
gotta
David
admit,
Tennant era.
The last one worked really well as, like, the final X-Men movie. The resolution to that movie was so good as a send-off to all the other movies before it. I mean, it even retcons X-Men 3. That's how thorough it is.
Yeah.
After
And then it would have been a
Apocalypse,
massive
you need
mistake to
pretty
not
good
build
reason
on
to
that.
Continue the series. So does Age of Apocalypse justify its existence? No. Not at all.
That's not the
This
name of its
movie
fucking
is
movie, but...
shockingly terrible. This film is
You
kind
are
of the
shockingly
epitome
terrible.
of beating a dead horse. For some reason, this looks and feels like the cheapest X-Men movie. It looks like a...
You've included clips
Oh.
from Dark Phoenix in this review.
Good fucking God, man.
Marcus, are you... I'm going to stop asking the question because we already know that.
CW show now.
No? CW doesn't look... The CW wishes it looked half this good. I watch the CW shows, motherfucker. I watched the season premieres of Arrow for, like, fucking years. I watched all the fucking shit. I watch that shit weekly, motherfucker. Supergirl, fucking Legends of Tomorrow, Arrow, The Flash, Batwoman and Black Lightning, they ain't got shit on this. I had to think for a second here. And unfortunately, Superman and Lois was cinematic quality for a while. And then HBO slashed the budget. And then they canceled it. Good job, guys.
What am I looking at?
You're looking at Olivia Munn's ass and tits. I hope that helps.
And then I just told you guys my score for this movie. None of you would even question me. Like, come on, look.
I would, but that's because I'm insane, and I keep watching your reviews even though I know they're going to make me angry.
Look at this. They didn't even key out the green screen all.
Oh, like
Just
you
like
didn't.
You don't key out your green screen?
Also, like, it's the light. The light is catching her hair. It's not like a green tinge. I know this because I've seen this shit in other movies where they didn't do it right.
All the way. You can still see it. It looks
No.
like I keyed this out myself.
That's...
See, when you have, like, curly hair, it's impossible to get it out. What can I do? Every scene where...
You know what you do? You fucking put your hair up underneath your goddamn beanie, Tim Pool.
Apocalypse is talking, has these rapid, disorienting cuts. Like they're trying to draw focus away from him, maybe because they know he looks stupid. I don't know, I really don't understand it. We're also back
I wish
to
we
the
had
pause.
face cams
All
on,
the
because
other
then I could
movies
show
have.
how
Yet again,
disappointed
we are
I look
back
every time I
to
look
film
away.
With Storm, Cyclops,
You can.
and Jean Grey, where they don't have any
My webcam's
You can enable
broken.
your face.
personalities.
Oh, yeah.
Now, despite
The whole movie
yeah,
is about
anyway.
them,
all
Marcus.
this, if this movie actually focused on Cyclops and
Kind of like it does.
Jean and all of these original X-Men, we would
Kind of
have
like
a
it
much more
does.
interesting movie. But the problem is, it's trying
Kind
to
of like it
be
is.
another big epic X-Men movie like the
Okay.
last one was. But if you ask me, this should have been a smaller scale story. For a second, I was excited to see a cute scene of our
But Apocalypse is a kind of a big deal.
He is literally one of the most powerful villains in all of Marvel.
So are you saying that you want this movie to not have Apocalypse in it, maybe save him for another movie, which I could kind of see. We could
Yeah.
we can establish more of the X-Men, have like a slightly smaller scale story, and then do Apocalypse next year. But like, I,
Apocalypse
but
was set up in Days of Future Past's post-credits scene.
yeah, like I'm not entirely sure because like Marcus is complaining about things that aren't problems with the movie now.
Imagine X-Men going to the mall and hanging out, but
Like they do in this movie.
Teenagers!
They have fun off screen. We don't even see what they did.
They watched Return of the Jedi!
It's on the fucking marquee behind them.
This is a gigantic...
Look
It
at
is
that, Marcus!
Marcus,
Look
it's
at
on
that!
the fucking marquee!
Jean Grey even flat out says, well, we can all agree the third one is the worst.
Look at that! Return of the Jedi!
It's in 1983!
The second half of the movie is all about them, but again, we forgot to give them character traits.
Okay, that's just not even bothering to say, okay, hey, we're characterizing them through their actions.
How do you mess this up? Now, the last movie
Basic,
ended in a way that means
you know, character 101 where you can characterize your
this is
people
a new
through your
alternate timeline, and as such, some of the plot inconsistencies can be glossed over. But some of this shit is just so distracting. The one plot inconsistency that gets to me for some reason is that we are not meant to question the fact that none of these people have aged. Because First Class was set in...
You made a joke out of how Patrick Stewart hasn't aged in like 50 years by the time you made the... And the character's not aging a whole lot is now a problem to you.
And another thing is that mutants age slower than normal people.
Yeah, that's kind of... That was something in the comics. Now you just don't fucking care, I guess.
In 1962,
and at the very least, Mystique, it makes sense.
Is set in the 80s.
At the very least, it makes sense for Mystique since she's a shapeshifter. She can look however she wants.
Yep.
20 years later.
Okay. I mean, fucking Ewan McGregor doesn't look that much different now than he did when he was in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
You fucking kidding me? It's been 20 years, you know. Oh, he's cheated on his wife since then, and he's made some shitty movies and TV shows since then. But the point is, he doesn't look that different.
Birds of Prey.
Damn, that
Birds of Prey.
Really working overtime. Like,
yeah, that is literally a thing. To be in his 40s. Okay, I mean, like, look at fucking Vic Mignogna. Good God, look.
He doesn't want to look at Vic Mignogna because.
Oh right, I forgot about that. Look at Christopher Lloyd. Christopher Lloyd has looked like he's a million years. They made several jokes out of the fact that Christopher Lloyd looks essentially the same throughout the years, throughout Back to the Future.
The actor wasn't even in his 30s when this movie was made.
Okay, that's not a criticism.
No.
You're spending time on things that don't matter now. Now, can we get to the plot?
All of these main characters are supposed to be at least over 40.
Did you see that Xavier is his hair is starting to fade around the temples? Did you see that? You just showed it in the close-up.
Some of them are pushing 50, and none of the actors were even past their 30s here.
Yeah, you know, I'll take that over like the 40-year-old teenagers they cast in some of these movies.
I'm sorry. White people do not age like this.
Ewan McGregor, Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, fucking Vic Mignogna, Hayden Christensen. Hayden Christensen has visibly aged since the prequels, but the thing is, he doesn't look that much worse than he did then. And he just looks like he's slightly older.
She looks amazing. She's barely aged a day.
Oh, yeah.
Sofia Vergara.
Yeah, that's convenient. In fact, none of you have. But fine.
Yeah, okay. If you're gonna complain about that,
let's talk about the actual movie.
Yeah.
The purpose of this film is to show us how Professor Xavier went bald.
No, the purpose of the film is about them beating Apocalypse, because that's the whole point of the Age of Apocalypse storyline.
I mean, I'm not really wrong about that. I mean,
You
I just
kind of
assumed
are.
he shaves his head. But this film establishes that he goes bald because he absorbs too much power. I've tried to deliver that line.
No, because they were transferring Apocalypse into his body, because that's how Apocalypse continues to gather more power. This was in the movie.
Yeah.
How many times do I have to say that the things you're criticizing were addressed in the
Line
film?
Without laughing multiple times, and that's the closest that I got. This movie tries to juggle a few too many plates at once. We have a new villain who comes out of absolutely nowhere.
He was established in the
And
last
the most
film.
new mutants added in a single movie.
No, you've reviewed X3. No, The Last Stand had way more mutants.
This film introduces Archangel, Psylocke.
He's introduced as Archangel, and then he's introduced as Angel, and then becomes Archangel, and there's Psylocke. Yes.
New versions of Storm, Nightcrawler, Jean, and Cyclops.
Are
any of these characters developed in this movie?
Dare I say it, kind of?
No way. Not this time. No.
Thank you, Commander Riker.
No way. Not a chance.
We also have our old character Magneto going through the same tired conflict that
The Soviets killed his family.
Yeah.
Which, I hope you say that this is the same tired conflict when you're talking about the comics as well, because this happened there too.
that we've seen him go through in all of these prequel movies.
It's not like a bunch of wildly prejudiced totalitarians would want to take out somebody who's vastly different from them.
Now, like I said, I really liked him in First Class. I thought it was good for these movies to give him more depth. But at this point, I am officially sick of seeing him struggling with the light side and the dark side.
He ain't Kylo Ren, bro.
It was well done in First Class, and it was acceptable in Days of Future Past, but by this point, this is just absurd.
How?
This is his fucking character, dude. I don't know what to tell you. This is the whole thing his character is built around.
One very strange thing that these movies like
The
to
struggle
do
between his
is
humanity and his
establish
mutanthood.
a completely new antagonist, but also make Magneto the other villain.
He's one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in this movie. I don't know what to say.
Even if it makes no sense.
He isn't even the
In
primary
X-Men 2,
antagonist.
The main villain of that movie was Stryker.
Hang on, you complained about them not doing enough villainy shit with him in X2, and now you're complaining that they did villainy stuff with him in X2? What?
And also Magneto. In X-Men 3, the villain was Jean Grey. And also Magneto. In Days of Future Past, the antagonists were basically the Sentinels, but also Magneto.
Hey, I can fly!
And in this movie, the main villain is Apocalypse. And also Magneto. In the beginning,
No, Magneto isn't the main villain.
But all you gotta
No, Magneto switches sides to work with the fucking X-Men. He makes the X symbol. He makes the fucking X symbol.
do with Magneto is go up to him
And
and
he
be
helps
like, hey,
repair
you wanna go kill
or
somebody?
the Xavier Manor.
Yeah.
And he's like, die! Oh, is Magneto happy and at peace now? Well, we better give him a new family and then kill him, just so that he can verbally tell the audience that he's having an internal moral conflict.
Is this what you want from me?
It's not really an internal moral conflict. It's kind of become external at this point.
Yeah.
Is this what I am?
No, this isn't happening. There's no reason for me to go on. What?
Really using X4? Are we really using Mega Man X4? Come the fuck on, dude. And by the way, in context, that is one of the first times we ever really see Zero go through some kind of emotional anguish. And since Iris was somebody who was very fond of him, and he actually really liked her as well. Well, the only problem was that he was forced to kill her brother. and then she gave in to Sigma's manipulation.
The
These
performance,
are
the
these are
performance is kind of undermining the weight of the dialogue here, I have to say. You're making things out to be worse than they actually are, Marcus, but you do that often.
yeah.
Oh, and I should also mention
Also,
that this
that voice that was given to Zero, that was a that was done by a Japanese by an English voice actor who happened to be in Japan, so Capcom could cut some costs and whatnot.
Sounds about right.
And later on your favorite non-actor as Alucard was in the dub for X7.
Oh, cool.
Keep in mind the reason why I said non-actor, because Robert Belgrade is not an actor or voice actor.
this movie is now trying to retcon Quicksilver in
What? No, that was in Days of Future Past. He said that in Days of Future Past. They said it.
to being Magneto's son.
They did. That's not a retcon. That's a real thing. They said that in the previous movie. You just missed it. And you know what? It's also in the fucking comic.
And guess what? My first introduction to Quicksilver, or in his and Wanda's relationship with Magneto, was through X-Men Evolution, where yes, as they did use that. Although Wanda is far more estranged from Magneto than Pietro was.
Just doesn't make any sense in
He says my mom knew a guy named Eric.
this movie. This is
No,
clearly
no, Alex. He said that that his mom knew a guy who could move metal.
Oh, right. The same fucking difference.
Something they didn't plan ahead of time that they're
You're really dedicating time to this. Holy
just
shit.
throwing into this at the last minute.
Yeah.
Like, when did Magneto meet this random woman? How many families
Before
does this man
Days of Future
have?
Past. Several. He's got as many illegitimate and legitimate children as, well, dare I say it, Wolverine.
Though I will say that
Dude gets
Quicksilver,
around.
again, does get the best scene in this
Well, I'm
movie.
glad
On
you're
one
not
hand,
complaining
I'm glad
about
there's a
this.
scene in this one with some life and energy, but it's also kind of annoying that we're
What?
relying on the one thing that they knew worked in the last movie.
What?
Just think that no matter what happens here,
Good scene in one movie, good scene in other movie. Math ain't mathin' here, boss.
movie. Like, even the costumes, they're just so uninspired.
Yeah, they're kind of like they're trying to tie this into the other X-Men movies, you fucking idiot.
This is like an analogy for the whole movie. We had something that worked, but now we're back to this bullshit.
Fucking
I will say that this movie is
Dark
definitely
Phoenix
not
is
boring.
where you need to
It is
levy this criticism.
very
Dark
funny.
Phoenix is where you need to put it. Those also aren't their fucking suits, by the way. Yeah, it is. Yes, because they're literally in Xavier's brain, and he puts them in his literal house. Oh my god, it's not that complicated.
Is just straight up desperate. Desperate to try and utilize elements that made the other movies work.
Building on things that were established in previous movies is what a good sequel does, Marcus.
If you didn't believe me when I said that this movie is manipulative, they bring back Wolverine for just one short scene where they need him to kill some people.
Okay, and it's kind of what Wolverine does for the most part.
This is so unbelievably lazy.
Also, that thing that you were complaining about of why he's obsessed with Jean
Comes up in this movie.
it comes up in this fucking movie, Marcus.
I'm not sure if this is the worst X-Men movie that I've seen so far. Like, I think Last Stand is probably the worst movie on paper.
Yeah, it fucking is. God damn it, this should not be hard.
But this one is...
This is like the people who said that fucking Batman v Superman was worse than Batman and Robin and Batman Forever. There is no universe in which that's true.
It's just so much more offensive.
Well,
No, it's not.
Agree the third one's always the worst.
Yeah, no. Bryan Singer has earned his right to take a jab at X3.
Yeah, you said it, sister.
Yeah.
So I'm putting this on our worst superhero movie tier list, and I'm giving it a 3.5 out of 10.
That's lower than you gave a couple of films that were on here. Dark Phoenix better be down at the very bottom.
This is.
You're using clips that don't even... They're not even that bad out of context.
Boring.
Now, everybody told me that this movie was going to be bad. I've heard this since this movie came out. So I gotta say,
Yeah, it is.
I've really been looking forward to it. And yeah, I mean, you guys weren't lying. It sure does suck. So this is our second attempt at making a
Why the Sonic music?
Phoenix story
Just,
for the big screen.
I feel like he just plays whatever is on his playlist just for this stuff. He doesn't really.
I'm gonna
have
throw
much
some fucking
coherence
Disturbed
here.
into the background on my next review just to poke fun at this guy.
You know how great it went the last time.
Even though you risk
But this time around,
copyright.
the movie's
I can get away with 6 seconds.
trying to be more comic book accurate, which means
No, it's not. Oh my fucking god. You did not just fucking say that. You! This is the most superficial that has ever
we get
been.
a lot of extra bullshit that we didn't really need. Also, I need to bring up the fact that this movie is set in the 90s, which means that Charles Xavier is supposed to look like this by now.
Right, except that Patrick Stewart is all but retired from acting at this point and was currently tied up with one of the worst fucking Star Trek shows ever made.
Yep, you are looking great, Charlie. Anyway, probably the
Yeah, it's almost like the fucking joke that you made earlier.
most noticeable thing about this movie is that the script is... How should I put this? Let's just say that it's doo-doo.
Schizophrenic is what I would have said because it's not written by the same person all throughout. It's clearly written by about 12 different people in various ghostwriting capacities.
By the way, the women are always saving the men around here. You might want to
Why are you blonde? You had red hair once.
think about changing the name to X-Women.
But despite
Yeah, that's a good
the
example of a
performances
shitty
here are
line.
actually not that bad.
Yeah.
I gotta say that at the very least,
line that was
the
probably in
actors
the
these
reshoots.
movies really are trying. Nicholas Hoult has kind of been an unsung hero in these movies. His performance
Completely unsung by you.
has been very good, and this scene in the kitchen is like the best he does. But that does not mean that his character
no, that
is
scene
written very
wasn't
well. But we'll get to that in a
terrible.
minute. At the same time, we have Jennifer Lawrence, who really has been giving it her all, but at this point, it's very obvious that she clearly does not want to be in these movies anymore. Can we
Or
just
in the
let
makeup.
Mystique leave? She's been here long enough.
Yeah, that makeup looked like shit. The makeup looked like shit, the color correction looked like shit. Like, upping the saturation of the blue in that shot would have made her face look less like shit.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's one way to do it. So yeah, in this movie, Jean Grey
Yeah, it was
kills
fucking
Mystique.
dumb.
This movie's so fucked up. This is kind of the big event that causes both Beast and Magneto to lose their goddamn minds. They go on this evil
Kinda.
revenge murder quest to kill Jean Grey, and now Beast has no
Evil revenge murder quest. I mean, like, Wolverine kind of had to go on that, too.
reason to instantly become this bloodthirsty.
I mean, she was his friend, and he had a crush on her, and Jean is fucking nuts, so, you know.
Yes, he loved Raven, but it doesn't suit his character. He isn't this irrational, and he's the
People don't think rationally when a super creature kills somebody they love. Somebody they've known for a very long time. Somebody who they trusted killed somebody they love, by the way. He's not the right state. Beast's decisions in this film are the least thing that you should be criticizing. Criticize the fucking writing, man.
last person who should be resorting to violence. And then
Have you read the comics? You know, you
No,
claim
he
to
hasn't.
have. Oh, hey. Fassbender has a little chip out of his tooth right there.
we have Magneto. And oh man, Do not get me started on Magneto. At this
Magneto is not the chief thing you should be criticizing in this film. There are worse things to criticize than what he does in this movie.
Not even one.
He is just
Not even one of the main
laughably
villains.
stupid. Every single one of these fucking prequel movies has the same arc for Magneto.
No,
That's not even fucking happening in this movie. Jesus Christ.
He
Of
finally
all the fucking things to criticize about this goddamn movie.
Magneto doesn't even kill anybody that he shouldn't be killing. Like, he literally aided the people who were trying to escape from Jean Grey by making it by trying to get at the helicopter away from her range.
It doesn't. Oh
He
my
was being
god! How do you?
reasonable in this.
It is
He was
so
being reasonable in this movie. He was told by the government, and hey, as long as you don't step outside of this land, we will not do anything to you. Oh,
Yeah.
and Magneto agreed to those terms.
This dude falls back and forth between good guy and bad guy in the most
He's not a bad guy!
In one scene, he's like,
Yeah, that doesn't happen in this movie.
And not act out and not go crazy because I want to give mutants a good name. I have people to protect. And then Beast is like, hey, you want to go kill Jean? And he's
They kind of asked him to go. They kind of asked him to get onto the Dark Phoenix task force.
Yeah, and not only that.
How do you criticize a movie that's this bad this poorly? Actually, you know what? I was asking this question like an hour ago when we were in the fucking X3 segment.
Not only that, Eric also knew and cared about Mystique to an extent. So, yeah. Now, when he hears that Jean's the one who killed her, he's gonna want some answers.
Yeah, no, she was his fucking right-hand woman and confidant for fucking years.
Like death to all of them.
Yeah, no, that scene was actually pretty cool.
How every character
and that
loves
scene
Mystique so much, especially when you look back on the original movies and you remember the fact.
Sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, that scene where Magneto's just firing off the guns. He was using it against one of the bad guys.
Yeah.
That she barely had any lines. But now it's like she's the only girl on the Discord server and everybody's obsessed with her.
Yes, women belong in the kitchen. Except me, because I'm one of the boys.
This movie has a...
What?
Well, I don't even fucking know. I don't fucking know, man. I don't...
officially lost everything that made these movies enjoyable. This may be the worst one. And unlike the last movie, this one doesn't even have Quicksilver to distract.
There's not even a question. It is the worst one. Might be. Jesus Christ, you're being too charitable.
He's in the movie for a second, but Jean Grey throws him into a bush. Yeah, that's it. He's out of the movie. He's in a coma now because he got thrown into a fucking berry bush. Remember when I said earlier that when the writers don't know what to do,
he broke his fucking leg too, but you know,
power is too strong.
Yeah,
they just get rid of him. This is probably the worst example of that. I mean, after all, we have to have more time to devote to Jean Grey. I mean, the movie is about her after all.
Yes, it is literally named after one of her alter egos.
We have forgotten to give Jean Grey character traits. In this movie, the Phoenix Force enters Jean Grey's body, and it causes her to go crazy and have...
Okay, are you going to criticize how they kind of teased the Phoenix Force in the previous film?
Uncontrollable
and didn't build on that.
But she very clearly has had uncontrollable Phoenix powers in the last movie.
Hey! Congratulations! You got an easy one.
So you're telling me that this wasn't the Phoenix Force?
That's weird.
But now this movie establishes that no, she did not have the Phoenix Force until just now. You could have just said that the Phoenix Force was always inside of her. Why didn't you guys plan this story ahead of time?
Because it's Fox, and Fox does not make good decisions.
But no, we need to reintroduce the Phoenix Force in this one because this movie has to also establish aliens. Yeah, aliens.
Yeah, I believe those were supposed to be the Skrulls originally.
Yeah.
This is basically the craziest thing that this movie can choose.
Which is interesting, for them to not be the Skrulls, considering that they could have done anything,
to do at this point. Now, yeah, aliens do show up a lot in X-Men stories, but I can say, now that I'm more familiar with the comics, that I don't really like when they do alien stuff. That's not to say that cool
you don't like alien... The Asgardians are aliens.
Yeah.
The...
X-Men related sci-fi stories can't be written, but for them to introduce aliens for the first time in the final X-Men...
They didn't know it was going to be the final movie at the time. They were not aware that they were going to be bought out by Disney.
Men movie ever. Let's just say it's kind of bold. It's also very bold.
It also wasn't the final X-Men movie ever. You know this because New Mutants came out afterwards.
We don't need no education.
We don't need no water. Let the motherfucker
To not give
burn!
the villain any motivation. Jessica Chastain's character is probably the worst superhero movie villain that I've ever seen. And I just said
I can't
that same
disagree with
statement
that.
a few videos ago. So believe me, this was
No,
very
you're
surprising
fucking...
for me too. I almost can't call her a real character. Her backstory is that her planet was destroyed by the Phoenix Force. So now she wants to harness its power and destroy Earth? That's the thing.
I have a feeling you're not...
Really say what...
You know, here's the thing. I have a feeling he's not entirely accurate in his assessment here, but I hate this movie so much I don't particularly care.
Yeah.
She wants to do.
Frankly, the villain's motivation in this film was kind of confusing.
No, that's not it either. Can we just make up a reason? Can we give her any reason to be in this movie? I'll take anything. This part right here makes me laugh. Watch this. She just stands there. And then... And remember, this is also the second time we're trying to adapt the Phoenix story at the last minute. And just like X-Men
It wasn't
3,
the last minute either
Jean
time.
Still isn't a character. Her only personality
Jean was a
trait is
character
that
in the
she
previous movie,
likes
but
her
they didn't do
boyfriend.
anything with
The
her.
only dialogue she has in this movie is her saying, "I can't control my powers. People are gonna get hurt."
I break things.
I can't control it when it comes. I can't stop it. Okay, I could hurt you again when it comes.
Okay.
People get hurt.
I can feel it coming in the air tonight.
This is how
Lord.
every conversation in this movie goes. It doesn't feel like a lot happens in this
I mean, it
movie.
is the central
Jean just
conflict
flies
of the
around
film.
and tries to get people to help her.
Yeah.
And then they all get arrested and they fight aliens and that's it. The movie's over. By the time the final battle began, I was very surprised because it didn't feel like a final battle. I guess I could say that the final battle is at least semi-entertaining.
Yeah, because it was actually part of the original movie, as opposed to being endlessly reshot like the rest of it was.
But no, it's okay, don't worry, they're just aliens. This train scene is probably the only fun scene in the movie just because it's one big dumb action scene. And of course it has to devolve into boring CG pink fire bullshit. And then as expected, Jean Grey dies to save her friends. Scott, do you have any feelings about this? No? Alright, and that's it. There isn't anything else I can talk about here. There's really nothing else that happens in this movie. But to be honest, somehow, this one isn't as bad as I expected. Don't get me wrong, it is not good at all. But after the last movie, I really thought I was gonna see something truly offensive to my senses. And yes, this is worse than the last one, but it's like only marginally. They still have a lot of the same problems.
People who complain about this film versus the other one, Apocalypse, say the Apocalypse was almost as bad as this. People, you need to get better taste in films, frankly, because I have seen so many worse films. Did you watch Ghostbusters? Ghostbusters came out the same year that Apocalypse did. I watched both of those.
I did.
So
and yeah, Ghostbusters was definitely the worst.
And give
You're putting it on the same. I would have. There are parts of the Amazing Spider-Man 2. There are a lot of parts of the Amazing Spider-Man 2 that I love and would love to see again. There are like 2 parts of Dark Phoenix that I would actually watch again, but I'd probably just, watch the individual scenes,
Another 3 out of 10.
You...
Yeah, I'm gonna be real with you guys. I think I hate the X-Men now. Overall, I think the movies have not been that great, but the comics are pretty good.
You're
This
fucking
one's supposed
weird.
to be, like, crazy. I'm excited to read that. And we still have.
I didn't
like,
even
a
see what
half
that
a
was,
dozen
but I don't
movies to
care.
watch, so I'm gonna need a break real quick. I gotta finish some of these. I mean, you guys don't have to go anywhere, but just like don't bother me.
All right, let's just get
See you
to
next
part
year.
2.
Hey, you guys know
I'm
that
blue
X-Men
and
theme
dee da
song
ba
from
die,
the
da
cartoon?
ba dee da ba
Like-
die, da ba dee da ba die, da ba dee da ba die, da ba dee da ba die. Oh yeah, I love this one. Yep. Japan likes its metal more than America does.
Clearly.
High evolution. People wonder why I go direct to Japan for some of my equipment.
Oh, there's no bit after that. I just think it's a cool song.
Okay. Yeah.
What are you looking forward to most
You're gonna be...
about this film?
Well, I think I'm looking forward to cracking up.
Now, like I said in the last video,
What?
I was originally going to make a worst superhero movies video on
I think
X-Men.
that was...
I would... I'd love to see how much he fucks up the Supergirl review.
And, as you know, Catwoman won.
Ugh.
Now, I guess I understand that a lot of audiences were asking for an origin for Wolverine.
Yes, because he's one of the most popular characters in Marvel Comics. He was
Ever heard of Wolverine publicity?
Yeah, Wolverine. In fact, back in the day, the 3 most popular characters in Marvel Comics were Spider-Man, Wolverine, and the Incredible Hulk. So, yeah. People love Wolverine. People were demanding a fucking origin movie for years, and comic.
And X-Men Origins Wolverine doesn't really even answer any questions that you think they would answer.
Hi, Danny
The first
Huston.
thing I would ask, as you know, a normal person, is why does he call himself Logan? Because his real name is James. This movie teaches us that. But no, this film does not actually tell us why his name is Logan. Sometimes they call him Logan, sometimes they call him Jimmy. What the fuck? You think that might be, like, an important thing to explain to the audience? In fact, if you look at this movie as an introduction...
Oh my god. Oh my god, he's
Already up
fucking
to a
up
great
criticizing
start.
one of the most broken films in the history of filmmaking. How do you do that?
...to the X-Men mythos, you're gonna be
Finds a
pretty
way,
fucking
Alex.
confused, because it makes the other movies make less sense. This movie makes Logan and Sabretooth biological brothers.
Half-brothers. They're half-brothers.
Wasn't...
Same mother, different father.
Especially when you consider the fact that this movie ends with them being on good terms.
Kind of good terms. Not good... Better terms than they were in other movies, maybe. Better terms than they were on other things, but come on!
Nothing makes sense at all. Because they were mortal enemies in X-Men 1. And
Right, that movie takes place 25 years after this.
Yeah.
it's not like Sabretooth had anything to say about finally meeting up with his long-lost brother once again. I don't even think he said anything.
Fucking matter.
Now that I think about it. I complained about these inconsistencies a lot in
Well,
the
that's what
last
happens
video,
when you're played by a
but let me
stunt
tell you,
actor.
This movie
Yeah.
isn't about to
Well,
fix
technically, he was a...
And I'm
Tyler
sorry,
Mane is a
there's something
professional
truly
wrestler, but
hilarious
yes.
about the screen freezing, showing us a war-torn wasteland, and then seeing a credit for See, this is the kind of shit that I like. This is the best kind of bad superhero movie because it thinks that it's the coolest movie ever.
I would rather films think that they're the coolest thing ever than do the Love and Thunder thing. I'm just saying.
And Logan walking away from the helicopter exploding, I'm not gonna lie, one of the best parts of the movie.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
But it's actually the most absurd shit you've ever seen. I think
Okay, I mean, I'd rather... I love it when they do... I would... the bad that this movie is, I will take over the bad that we've been getting for, like, the last 3 years. 4 years. Yeah, 4 years-ish. Oh.
Definitely make the case that this is the funniest X-Men movie ever.
Okay.
I don't May Cry 5.
Yeah.
story to
Oh yeah, are you gonna bring up how they fucked up the dog tags?
Wolverine, it ends up being less interesting than just giving him a metal skeleton and amnesia. Because sometimes
Like I said, the Wolverine parts of this movie aren't the bad parts.
is more fascinating. This film is basically the result of trying to write
All right there, J.J. Abrams. Fucking
uninspired-
Christ.
the most uninspired Wolverine story ever and brand it as an origin. In this, he's part of a Black Ops mutant team with his brother and a bunch of murderers until he's like, wait a second. I think murder's actually bad.
No. Okay, so you skipped.
Here's the.
You skipped it. You skipped
Okay.
over. Oh my god.
Okay, to explain this, is when
Fucking idiot.
they don't. Logan may not be above of killing people that are, armed and whatnot.
No, these
to the teeth.
people were. This is the whole fucking point of the Vietnam shit, man.
The people that are being lined up for execution, and here after they wouldn't give Stryker the information on the adamantium, they
Unarmed
they weren't.
non-combatants.
Yeah, and Logan is not a fan of murdering innocent people. Oh, and guess what? He wasn't really. I'm sure he wasn't that big a fan of Victor threatening to rape an innocent woman.
No.
The only reason they stuck together is because where else were they gonna go?
Yep.
And then we get another one of my favorite X-Men movie cliches, our hero finding a peaceful life in the mountains with a new pretty wife.
Okay, that's a Wolverine. That is a consistent aspect of Wolverine's history, where he tries to settle down in the middle of nowhere with his lady, and then mutanty things come and fuck up his nice peaceful existence.
At the very least, his canonical wife is the head of a Yakuza group.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Good luck trying to get to her.
That's right. When you don't know how to motivate your X-Man into participating in a story, you just gotta kill their wife. It works every time.
That's a comic book thing in general. In fact, that's a movie thing. That's
wait.
fiction.
Wait, can you
Putting
pause?
the hero's loved ones in danger is conflict 101.
Bride, wife, life, wife fight back, kill wife, wife gone. Think about wife. Regret. Let's proceed.
That I've ever heard. Like, it was at the point where I could predict what the characters were going to say in almost every scene.
And then one of the people who wrote this film would go on to attempt to finish off Game of Thrones.
Oh, lovely.
With subversions.
Look what the cat dragged in.
One of the best castings for Mr. Creed ever, and he's wasted in this piece of shit.
He lasts one movie and goes away.
Hi, Gambit. Who's not even really Gambit.
Dude, who wrote this movie? I gotta know. That name looks really familiar. Oh God. Wait a minute, I remember now. No.
Forgot
about the Iron Fleet and...
You do not... Marcus, you don't get to have standards now, buddy.
You see, this actually makes perfect sense when you think about it. If you guys remember in my Game of Thrones video, I criticized David's writing style by saying he writes the ending first, and then basically twists the story unnaturally.
What? No, I write the endings first for a lot of my stories, and you know what? I've never gotten that criticism, because you know what I do? I build to it. Building to the fucking ending, you have to start off... What you do when you write a good story is you come up with either the beginning or the end first, and then you fill in the gaps in the middle. That's just how you do things. You figure out where it ends, where it starts, and you put everything together to try and make things come together along the way. Now, if you realize that you can't marry the beginning to the end, you take the end, you put it off in a little bubble by itself, and you think about whether you can use it in something else, or you change the beginning, or you do... This isn't a criticism. This is stupidity. This is concentrated stupidity.
Get to that ending. And it's the same thing here, because since this is a prequel, naturally, the ending of this movie is already decided.
Not really, considering that there's like 25 years of history between X-Men Origins Wolverine and X-Men 1.
Yeah.
And you could have hypothetically done anything with it. You could have done all kinds of stuff along the way. They didn't, but they could have.
It just needs to end with Logan getting his metal skeleton and losing his memories.
Those are not... You don't need to have both of those things happen in the same movie.
So everything in this movie is just here to get us to that point. And it's still
okay.
So unnecessarily convoluted. We already got context for the Weapon X experiment in X-Men 2. So
no, we got shown the Weapon X experiment completely out of context. That was kind of the whole point behind the scene.
We don't really need half of this movie to explain how he got his stupid fucking metal skeleton.
Yes, you literally do, because it's the whole point of the... Fuck, it's part of the... If the origin... Does this man like Black Widow? Does this man like Solo?
Clearly.
I haven't watched his Black Widow review, so I wouldn't know.
And those movies also implied that the experiments are...
Oh, and this is Cuphead music?
No.
So that's it. That's all the explanation we should need. But no,
No.
we're gonna have to make...
No, this is like the people who say that like the line about how, oh, you know, don't judge me by my size, do you? Who means that Yoda shouldn't use a fucking lightsaber. Or the people who say that are fucking stupid.
An entirely new, more confusing backstory for Wolverine. So in this
No, it's pretty straightforward.
And they fight in a bunch of wars, but they have
Yeah.
a falling out, and Logan goes into exile and gets his hot wife.
No, he doesn't go into exile. He fucking retires. Jesus fucking Christ! It's not. He doesn't have anything to go into exile for.
Stryker is like,
yeah.
I kind of want to put metal in his skeleton. I bet that would be kind of...
I mean, so they don't have the rights to Captain America, so they can't explain that the Weapon Project is supposed to be an offshoot of the Super Soldier Project. But they're trying to make weapons. The military is always trying to make weapons. The atomic bomb is a weapon. That was kind of a big deal. I don't know if you know about that. So
kind of cool. But he has to get Logan to consent to the procedure, which is pretty dumb, but we'll get to that in a minute. So he
no. He has to get Logan into consent to the procedure because Logan is fucking freaky.
Yeah.
And he's not going to... You're not going to force him to do shit.
To go kill Logan's wife, so that Logan will try to kill Sabretooth in revenge. And then Logan will get his ass kicked, and then go to Stryker and ask for the metal skeleton upgrade so that he can use it to kill Sabretooth.
So that he can beat him, because he got beat.
Story of this movie.
Yeah, it's kind of straightforward.
Just gets kidnapped and has the adamantium grafted onto him again.
Okay, so you do realize that him getting kidnapped would have been fucking retarded, right?
It would have.
Because you can't just do that to him. In fact, it very much was in the comic.
Fine. Why does he need to consent to the operation?
Probably because it's not exactly an easy thing to get a hold of a guy like Wolverine.
If your plan is to just wipe his memories against his will afterwards.
That wasn't part of the plan. That was a last resort. Because he figured out what they were doing.
He didn't have to consent to that.
The movie is bad, and you're failing to criticize it.
Trying his best to make this movie work.
Yeah.
He cannot save this dialogue.
Why didn't you tell me it was Victor?
Also, somehow the effects in this movie...
That's not a bad line of dialogue.
...the previous X-Men movies. Now, for some reason...
They're only... Yeah, I remember.
Roger Rabbit cartoon claws.
Yeah, no, I remember Hugh Jackman and a bunch of people complained about that. Yeah, that pretty fucking sucks.
But anyway, this movie is basically divided into two halves. The beginning is mostly just plagued with the cliche script, but otherwise it's your average boring superhero origin story. But the second half That's where this
What?
truly becomes a ridiculous, over-the-top action movie with no rules or logic. And I mean it, this is probably the dumbest action movie
Hi,
that I've
Ryan
watched on
Reynolds.
this channel in a good while. Like, why are
Dude
they
wanted to be in
trying
a
to
superhero movie
sandwich
so
a
badly that he was
motorcycle
willing to
with
star
a
in
truck
2 really
and a
bad ones.
helicopter?
Yep.
This movie also strangely decides to throw in Cyclops halfway through.
Yeah.
Try to figure out how that makes sense. I just really don't understand what the issue is with the continuity of these movies. It's driving me crazy at this point. Like in X-Men 2, Stryker very clearly wants to get rid of all the mutants. He wants to kill all of them, period. But in this movie, his ultimate plan is to take all of the mutants and combine their powers into a super mutant. This is like the exact opposite motivation. If you watch these two movies back to back, it's impossible to think of these as the same character. Oh, and like
I
we
mean,
mentioned before, this movie features Will.i.am
Sure.
as one of Logan's buddies. And I really gotta say, this man has no right trying to act.
We hunted our own kind, Logan. There's a special place in hell for the things we did.
It's not even the worst line delivery in this fucking franchise, dude.
This movie just becomes a comedy. It plays it so seriously for the first half of the film, and now it's just goofy. That's like the best word I can use to describe this. It's just a goofy movie.
It's a comic book film.
That's cool. Like, look at this. This is a fucking cartoon. This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in a superhero movie, and I am not lying when I say that. So anyway,
No, it's not. We've seen your review of the previous
is secretly alive.
previous video.
I'll be honest, I actually didn't see this coming. This is a genuine twist, but only because it's the stupidest thing that this movie can try to pull. So if we just squeeze this into our plot that already doesn't make any sense, we get this. Stryker needs to get Logan to agree to be in the Weapon X program. So he lets him leave his mutant strike force. Then he hires a sexy psycho.
No, he didn't let him leave. You can't stop Wolverine
so that in a few years,
from leaving.
Get Sabretooth to pretend to kill her, so that Logan will then try to kill Sabretooth, lose the fight, and then go to Stryker to get the metal skeleton. I'd like to bring to everybody's attention that all of this falls apart when you realize that every other mutant in Stryker's program was kidnapped by him.
Yeah, those guys weren't Wolverine.
So why not just kidnap Logan? Why
Those guys weren't Wolverine.
does this movie need to happen? And to top it all off,
I mean, that's a good question.
This movie, of course, has Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool for the first time. And it's
Yep.
so poorly done and so stupid that the new Deadpool movies are still making fun of it at every opportunity. And this character's evolution is
Yeah.
kind of a good example of what this movie stands for. It just takes something and it ruins it for no reason. And honestly, the worst thing about this
no, I
story
agree
is
with
that
you.
all character development is undone by the fact that this movie needs to end with our hero getting amnesia.
I mean, it
Logan
doesn't
actually
have
does
to
have a
end with
character
that.
in this movie, if you'll believe it. But none of it matters because we just have to wipe the slate clean. Oh, and how does this movie plan to wipe his memories? Well, believe it or not,
Brain damage.
they wipe his memories by shooting him in the head with an adamantium bullet.
Yeah, it's the
Hold on.
yeah, it's the only thing that'll get through his skull.
It's not in that one. I'm pretty sure. Okay? I'm pretty sure that's not canon. And I could really be an asshole and point out the fact.
I don't have a problem with this. I just don't know what else to say. I don't have a problem with that.
That in this movie, they say that the bullet wouldn't kill Wolverine because that would be stupid. That doesn't make any sense. But then,
Yeah,
in
because he can
Logan,
regenerate.
the movie Logan, they used the bullet to kill the other Wolverine, but I don't care. I'm not.
Yeah, because they were running the fucking. Did you realize that they were running the regeneration down to its fucking limit in Logan, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole thing that was going on in there, and like.
And plus,
Weapon
that gun was
X-24 was also like not exactly a perfect clone. Remember? You remember that? Remember that? You watched the movie. You're showing clips from it. You remember that, right? I don't know why I'm asking this shit.
Don't worry about it. I'm gonna get a headache. Anyway, the bad guys are defeated. The movie is over, and what? You can walk, but in the in the next movie.
That was... This is why you should have reviewed these movies in order.
Why did they do that to
Ah.
your face again? Fuck it, I don't care. Throw it on the tier list. 3 out of 10. We're moving on.
Oh, goody, the Wolverine.
Oh, it's a good
This
one.
movie is fucking pretty good. Yeah,
Oh,
I
hey!
kinda like this movie. I think I only know one person who's seen this one, and I think that this is probably the one X-Men movie that I know the least about. And I feel like I've said that about a lot of these movies, but this time I'm for real. I said this before, but I really like when the opening of a movie hooks you in. We're already seeing a more interesting backstory event for Wolverine. I think him surviving an atomic bomb is pretty fucking crazy, and I'm glad that we have a movie that finally covers it. And after that, we get a scene where...
no, I agree.
God damn it, not you again! So yeah, this movie's set after X-Men 3, so Logan has PTSD nightmares about Jean Grey. I mean, I kinda do too, after watching that shit. But despite this, I think this movie has a much better story than most of the shit we've been watching. By this point, it's actually been a while since I've watched an X-Men movie that I've enjoyed. So I think this was just a pleasant surprise. The good thing about not knowing jack shit about this movie is that I was fully engaged in the story. I didn't know much about the Days of Future Past film when I went into it, but I at least had the comic in the back of my head so I knew a little of what to expect. But here I get to enjoy a fresh new story, and I think the story is the best part of this one. The premise here is that Logan goes to Japan to visit a guy that he saved during the Nagasaki bombings, and while there he mysteriously gets his healing factor stolen. And this simple plot element does a lot to increase the stakes of this story. It can be difficult to give Logan something interesting to go up against, because most movies just make him fight people who have swords or claws. And he's like invincible, so he's never at risk.
Not really.
But by taking his healing factor away, we now have some more realistic.
He is kind of struggling as he goes through.
Story than what we've gotten before. I was worried that we would see the same overdone shit that we've seen in every Logan-centric movie, but the new setting and this new Wolverine-specific threat have made things very enjoyable. And I also gotta say, I really like the action in this movie. There's some creative action set pieces here, and in this movie,
It's just a shame that the next James Mangold film with a train in it wasn't so good. But I can't blame him for that. That was Disney's fault.
That were just thrown in to ward away our boredom. But that doesn't really feel like the case in the first half of this movie, and the fights really do have good choreography, and the cinematography doesn't slack here either. However, to complain a bit, I don't really like the fish out of water narrative very much. Logan
He's in Japan.
Now, granted, he has spent a lot of time in Japan, but here's the thing. He's attempting to...
He's basically a fucking samurai. And this is just another reason that this version of Wolverine annoys me. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine always feels like he's in over his head.
He's got brain damage and he's
always has to have
dealing with
explained to him.
All kinds of
That's not
shit.
really how comic Wolverine is. In the comic books, he's hot-headed, but he doesn't really get overwhelmed as much as this version of the character does. This guy really just never seems to know what's going on.
Yeah, no, it's almost like he has a little bit of brain damage.
Like this since the first X-Men movie. Like, dude, you are so old. You should know how the world works by now. This leaves me feeling a little conflicted, because while I do respect Hugh Jackman's performance of this character, I don't like this version of the character that much. And I also do have to address the elephant in the room. See, this movie is pretty good, up until it isn't. A lot of people say this movie jumps the shark.
No, that's not...
I think that's putting it lightly. I went from really liking this movie to rolling my eyes and being incredibly disappointed. And it happens very suddenly, because I was enjoying myself pretty close to the end of the movie.
Is he going to be talking about... Is he going to be bitching about Silver Samurai?
Battle rages on.
I have a feeling he's going to, because that's what people who complain about this movie tend to do.
We have to include one of the biggest ERJBs that I've seen in a very long
Oh my god, with that
You're calling back to that nonsense, huh?
It's pretty interesting and fun to see the mystery of this movie unravel, but when we get to the secret underground lab and the adamantium samurai mech suit, I'll admit I was struggling to keep my laughter under control.
I mean, if I could have an adamantium mech suit that also happens to be a samurai, I'd go with that. That's not a tiny net.
This movie's pretty
that's a full body net. The tiny net was
20 minutes. Logan goes from fighting Yakuza in the city streets to fighting fucking Megatron and a goofy-ass snake woman.
It's not
The action
fucking
scenes also get a
Megatron.
little sloppy here because it's just Wolverine fighting a CGI Gundam. We went from an interesting story with good fight scenes to this. This is really weird. It's like the movie just decides to stop being good. You said it, pal. So
Oh,
yeah,
this is
I'm
Sparta.
disappointed. We were
You
this
missed a
close
joke.
to greatness.
That would have
I guess
actually
I'm
been a
gonna give
funny
this
joke.
one a 6 out of 10. It's almost a 7, but you blew it. Next movie.
At least you didn't rate it that low.
Logan is the best X-Men movie. 9 out of 10.
Okay. You know what? I have the...
Fine. Most of you guys really
Uh.
want me to talk about this movie for some reason. I guess
For
it's
some
because I
reason,
didn't
because
listen
it's
to it
good.
back when it came out. And yeah, this movie is really good. It's almost a little too good. Like, how dare you be a good movie? You're supposed to be either okay or bad. Don't you know the rules? Now, I've said it before.
That's a
but I've
strange
absolutely
complaint to
loved
make, but
this
whatever.
interpretation of Wolverine
Yeah.
that we get in these movies. If anything, binging these movies back to back has kind of made me like him less. After watching these while reading the comics, I honestly can't say they're the same person at all. Even though I haven't
Yeah,
had
no,
extensive
it's
knowledge
kind of how
X-Men
these
comics
things
before,
work.
I have enjoyed Wolverine in a lot of other stories. But with this movie, I think I can finally accept that these two versions of the character don't need to be the same. Because at the end of the day, Jackman does make the character his own, and I guess I can respect that. If anything, this little X-Men binge of mine has gotten comic Wolverine very close to edging out Daredevil as my third favorite superhero. And even if Wolverine isn't the same, I still have enough love for the character at this point, and respect for Jackman's determination to really feel the emotion that this movie is going for. Now yes, I think the story of bitter, old, violent man takes care of child is becoming kind of played out, but I do strongly prefer this to the
Maybe,
usual
but,
narrative
you
of
know.
Logan falling in love and not being able to be happy with his girlfriend. Like, that's really been his fucking story in every movie, and I'm kind of over it.
Been his
I prefer
story
this
in a
narrative
number of
approach because to
comics
me,
as well.
It works much better when he's a mentor or a father figure, because I see him as a wise old man. But I think a lot of the movies have made him feel a little bit too much like a super durable 40-year-old, but this movie brings him back in the right direction. He finally feels like a guy who's been around for hundreds of years.
Yeah, but most of the time in the... You're Hang on. So he was complaining about him seeming like super durable, lives forever, 40-something guy. Now he's saying, oh yeah, I like it that he's better, but he was also complaining how he wasn't enough like the comic version, and now he's praising it for deviating more.
Of course he is.
Can we square these two circles in my head, please? Because I'm running in loops.
Circles. Just ignore every other X-Men movie. None of them come even close to it. This is like a real-ass movie.
Yeah, except for the fact that you wouldn't know any of the context of what goes into this if you didn't see the other ones.
For one, the cinematography is the best out of any X-Men movie, and honestly, it's better than most superhero movies, period. Mangold is very obviously trying to make this a Western. He's not really hiding it either. And you can already draw a lot of comparisons between samurai and cowboys, especially in film, so this is a perfect next step for the character in this franchise. Overall,
especially considering this character has been both a cowboy and a samurai.
Yep. When people say this is the greatest superhero movie of all time, I really think that kind of discredits his efforts. It's just a good movie. And this is more of a comic book movie
that discredits his efforts, because it is one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. And to say it's just a good movie is like that's incredibly reductive.
Get technical about it. And it's no secret that I really like when movies are straight up miserable, and this does scratch that itch. But what
that explains it.
Perfectly balances a miserable tone with light-hearted, charming moments. And there's also pretty good action.
That wasn't a light-hearted, charming moment. She almost killed that guy.
But after watching every movie that he's been in, and ending with this one, I think this serves just as well as his final film as it does for Logan. And this really is a knockout performance from Patrick Stewart. I always felt like while he was great as Professor X, in the other movies he never really got to show much emotion. But here, he really gets to act his pussy off. As good as Hugh Jackman
Yeah.
is in this movie, I have
What?
to say that Patrick Stewart and Daphne Keane really are the stars of this
Yeah,
show.
it's almost it's really a shame that they're not bringing her back as X-23.
Presentation of X-23.
It
It's not easy
is.
to pull off being equal parts adorable and creepy. Really,
Yeah.
the core of this movie is based on the fact that people really like movies about sad old men and children.
Oh, fun fact. My theater instructor's son, one of her sons, was one of Patrick Stewart's body doubles in this film.
Interesting.
Yeah.
People also really like superpowers. This movie is just fated to be good. It's just science, and yet it goes above and beyond to be the best movie in the X-Men series. I think this movie just feels the most
You're just
human.
not going to explain why.
If this movie didn't have any action scenes, it would still be the best one on the list. That's how good the emotion is in this film. Hell, my favorite scenes are the ones where the characters are just arguing with each other. And it's weird too, because when I first saw this movie, I definitely didn't like it as much as I do this time. I think I was nitpicking it a little bit too much, and I wasn't really the biggest fan of the X-Men movies. If I really had to force myself to find some things to criticize, I think the final boss being a young Hugh Jackman clone is edging on ERJB territory. And I do think that this movie is just a little bit too edgy. Now, I am fully in support of the violence and the gore of this movie.
Okay,
I think that
so that
is essential when Logan is the main character. But I do think some of the swearing sometimes comes across as a little unnatural. I don't really need to hear Professor X tell
you're
Logan
just
to fuck
stupid.
off. Everybody else is allowed to swear, but he's not. He's not allowed to have a potty mouth. And you know, when I think about it, most of the X-Men movies do use their one F-bomb, even the ones that are rated PG-13. And 90% of the time, they sound incredibly unnatural.
Go fuck yourself.
Fuck off. Who the fuck are you? If you touch her, I will fucking kill you.
This is better
I
than...
will fucking kill you, bro. But either way, yes, this is the best.
No, that was not as pathetic as you made it out to be, but that was because it was you saying it, Marcus.
That features the X-Men team, but this is the best movie in the franchise. I really can't argue it. It has the best story, the best character work, the best performances. It looks the best. It has the best action. It's not only the best X-Men movie, it's one of the best comic book movies ever made.
Hang on, you just said that was reductive.
Give this movie anything lower than a 9 out of 10. No, wait a minute. Have I ever told you guys what I think they're gonna do with the X-Men in the MCU? Everybody always says, oh, who's gonna be the new Wolverine actor? I don't think there's gonna be a new Wolverine actor. As we know, the MCU's been really
Possible that it's going to be Henry Cavill.
Lately. And like they're
That would
really
be
leaning heavy into it. And by the
that would
time
be
we get
very
to Doctor
strange if
Strange,
true.
It's gonna be a lot more prevalent. If you ask me, I think they're just gonna pluck the little X-Men out of this here Fox universe.
Well, somewhat, yes, that is somewhat true.
It's probably the easiest and least confusing way to do it. And the main reason I believe this is because
I mean, maybe.
they're not going to recast Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool.
Well,
He's just
yeah,
gonna
they
be the
haven't.
same guy. I don't even know if this is a good idea, and other people have probably had this theory. I don't watch comic book movie YouTubers. That stuff rots your brain. But anyway, speaking of Deadpool,
like your reviews.
Now I hope this doesn't disappoint anybody, but this part of the video is going to cover Deadpool 1 and 2 at the same time. Because I really think the two movies are pretty much the same in quality. And
You're fucking retarded. I mean, they are roughly the same in quality, but you're just generally retarded.
Not the biggest fan of the character or of these movies. In the comics, Deadpool's shtick never really did it for me. I think a lot of his stories can be very cringe, early 2010 Reddit humor type stuff. Though I have enjoyed.
Of course, you'd complain about Reddit humor because you don't have any humor.
Where he has other characters to bounce off of. I think placing him in a
Yeah, he's great when he's with Spider-Man.
Character can be very effective.
Yeah.
But having a whole
Wade
story
and
about
Spider-Man,
him,
and having one of the most iconic romances in all of
honestly,
comics.
maybe I'm in a good mood because I didn't really mind watching these this time. For starters, I don't think
I'm not sure how I'm gonna feel when I see Ryan Reynolds trying to be buddy cops with Tom Holland.
Films, but he honestly is the only
I would love to see that.
To the point where I hear Ryan Reynolds in my head when I read
Ryan Reynolds like, okay,
I
how
mean,
do you put the how do you put the suit on? And I thought you were wearing Stark Tech.
Yeah, I see. I
don't
kind
have
of.
access to that anymore.
I kind of. I kind of hear it's either him or Nolan North.
Deadpool is his favorite. because that passion does come out in his
Yep.
performance. And I will say that this movie was a pleasant surprise when I first saw it.
Hi, Francis.
As meta as they are, I knew we'd get jokes about X-Men movies from the past, but I didn't expect jokes about Green Lantern and the real-life actors who are playing these characters. But the problem with meta jokes is that they only work once. They only work when you don't expect them. The best joke in the second movie is where Deadpool laments on how the movie can't afford any of the main X-Men, and then this happens. And it's really funny the first time you see it. It's
Like,
kind of
nope.
like the Family Guy.
I mean, that only happened once, though.
Jokes are just reminding the audience about things that exist in real life. It wears a little thin and doesn't help repeat viewings. The references, this movie is also just trying to be as edgy as possible, which works sometimes, but a lot of the time it feels like it's really trying too hard. And to bring it back to Family Guy, I think a lot of the best jokes in Family Guy are the ones that are PG.
What's your name?
My name? T, Griffin.
And I think the same thing applies here. I laughed way more when
That joke was
characters were
fucking
just
terrible.
being witty or clever.
Now, Dopinder.
I could be of great use.
What's your superpower?
Courage.
That's adorable.
The worst jokes in these movies is when they're trying too hard to be vulgar.
You look like an avocado. Had sex with an older, more disgusting avocado. Yeah,
That was an escalation. They have a...
So funny.
The funnier jokes
That was an escalation of a joke that they had previously.
Wait. I'd go with you, but I don't want to.
It's pretty safe to say that the content of these films is kind of a mixed bag. I think movie 1 has bad pacing, but I don't know, I really don't mind that in an action
Hey, look,
comedy.
it's that prostitute
Movie 2
from
has more
Firefly.
insufferable jokes,
I wouldn't
but a
say
more
that it has
interesting
bad
story. I think
pacing,
the first movie, the structure of the
personally.
story does do a good job of showing just how nuts Deadpool is. I mean, he's our narrator, and the story's being told out of order, so it's kind of appropriate here.
By the
But
way,
at
the
the
theme
same
song
time,
is
I can't
Deadpool's
help but
theme
think
from
that
Marvel
this
vs.
movie might
Capcom
actually
3.
be better
That's
if
good.
it's just in order. But overall, I'm fine with the way this movie shakes out, even if it is a little simplistic and formulaic. In my opinion, I think simplicity is acceptable
Formulaic.
in a movie like
Where?
this. And one thing
Please
I do have to
explain.
give this first one credit for is that you do really feel for Wade in this movie. The story can be surprisingly emotional when it wants to be. But I do think the best thing about this movie is when you watch it for the first time and you're surprised with how much they get away with. And as far as the second movie goes, I think
The fucking
the story has a
Zamboni.
lot more going on, and it does get a lot more ambitious with the storytelling. But the jokes have way higher highs and much, much, much lower lows. I don't know, maybe I'm broke.
Okay,
I
please
remember
explain.
laughing a couple times when I first saw this movie. When I watched this, I kind of just wanted this movie to show me more stuff that I've never seen before. Because
Okay.
that's what the first one did. It surprised me. And then this one is just kind of more of the same. I expected this one to up the ante
Not
and just go
really?
fucking nuts. For a second, I thought that's what we were gonna get with this.
Yeah,
opening
we did
scene
get
of
that.
This guy running in slow motion, but Deadpool isn't in slow motion. That's silly. That's something I've never seen before. And I
Yeah.
really like the post-credit scene because that's what I expected this.
If I
entire
could
movie
turn back
all about
time,
insanity.
if I could find a way.
Part 2. You can see that they've got a slightly larger budget, but that's kind of it. They feel very similar. And I don't know.
No, they
maybe I'm broken,
don't.
but I really can't handle humor like this.
It's like,
Here we go.
It's like he was giving birth anally, but they quit halfway through. They got the legs out and they said, you know what? I'm done.
Happy?
It's like he's a Muppet from the waist down, but this time, you can see the Muppet's dick.
Oh my god, I forgot they do this in both movies. Though I will say that Deadpool 2
It's different
is much
jokes.
more of an X-Men movie. And since I'm in an
Sorry,
X-Men
that was
mood, it
actually
does
kind of
carry
funny.
this one for me a bit.
Yeah.
Watching this after binging
He's like a
every
Muppet from the
single
waist
fucking
down,
X-Men film
although you can
is
see the
kinda
Muppet's
nice.
dick.
It's like a little dessert at the end of this
Yeah.
big meal.
It's
Like
not
I
a,
said,
that's not
I
even that
actually
bad of a
like the
joke.
story
It's just
more.
really
No.
gross.
Time travel
I
does
know
work
it's
for
gross.
superhero
That's
stories.
why it was
It's the only
funny.
genre of movie that can make it work, and I do.
Because
like
we've
that
seen
we
the
have
baby
Cable
dick.
in this one, because, like I said, Deadpool works best when he has a straight man to bounce off of. And while I have been ripping into the humor quite a bit, there are still good jokes. I did laugh a bit while watching these movies. I guess it helps that I haven't seen these movies in a while, but some of these jokes really got me this time.
You killed Black Tom, you racist son of
Finally, I do think the funniest parts in in the second one are probably the cameos. There's a lot
Not
of
even
guest
black.
actors in this one. Like, I didn't
Oh,
know
hi,
that
Brad
this is
Pitt.
apparently Matt Damon. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, I didn't
This
even
is kinda
recognize
weird
that was
the
Matt
action
Damon when I
scenes
first
are
saw it.
actually really fucking sick in these movies. Like, I didn't expect that, but I'll take it. I unironically think that the action is the best part of the
The fucking bathhouse fight was great.
comedies, so I
Yes,
really
it
don't feel the
was.
need to try to poke holes in the movie and break down everybody's
No, I just want to watch Deadpool
performances.
2 again.
All
Thank
that
you,
stuff is
Marcus.
Perfectly acceptable in these movies. The movies are fun. I'm probably never gonna watch them ever again. And Deadpool 3 better be R-rated.
You're fucking lame, Marcus. Why do you not
Yes,
watch
you are.
movies more than
Into
twice?
a 5.5 out of 10.
Oh,
And
fuck
that's
off!
every X-Men movie. So now let's rank them all real quick and...
Yeah, I was gonna say,
the fuck is
hey, you're
that?
leaving New Mutants out. We've got 11 minutes of video left.
As one final turd in my cereal, Fox just had to squeeze out another bad X-Men story to end the franchise. See, this movie is very interesting. It was supposed to come out in 2018, but then it got delayed because they didn't want to overshadow Deadpool 2.
Excuse
Then
me,
it
it
was supposed to
wouldn't
come
have
out in
overshadowed
2019.
Deadpool 2. Oh, hi.
They didn't want to overshadow Dark Phoenix.
It also wouldn't have
And then
overshadowed that.
finally,
No,
they wanted to release it in early 2020, but oopsie. Yeah, this movie was fucking doomed. And when you watch this movie, it's very hard to understand why they even bothered. This is by far the most unnecessary entry in the series.
well, they were trying to
The thing
set up
is,
a whole
this
new
one's
team
bad
of
for
mutants,
completely
but
different reasons. To start, you'd think the acting
Yeah?
in this
it
movie
would have
be
been
better,
necessary if it had
but it's
actually been
not.
good. Then they could have kept on with new X-Men.
It's like I'm watching an episode of Riverdale. And it's weird
Yeah,
because this movie
no.
stars the millennial, late 2010s superstar.
God, I wish we could
It's like
pan
they
down
decided to
right
get the
now.
most marketable young adults in Hollywood.
Fortunately, Anya was not
But
on
for some
screen when
reason,
that
we have
happened.
everybody doing
Fortunately,
a
the
weird
dragon is not on
accent
screen more
that
often.
isn't their normal accent. Stranger Things boy isn't really doing the worst
Aren't they
job as
underage?
Cannonball, but some of his lines
The
are
actors? I don't
so
think so.
fucked up by this goofy country boy
Fuck, hang on.
accent.
Do I really have to spend my whole life in here for one mistake?
Once you're better.
I am when am I better?
We also have Anya Taylor-Joy.
Anya
doing
Taylor-Joy is older than
whatever
I
the
am.
fuck this is.
I'll see you in hell.
And the plot isn't enough to save this movie either.
Okay, fair
It's
enough.
the least interesting story out of everything we've watched in these videos. This story features young mutants who are trapped in a facility, and the main character is a girl who's making everybody...
Maisie
feel
Williams
she
is
knows
literally the
everything.
same
So
age as
basically, you
me.
have a handful of people in one building, all getting really upset for
Okay.
an hour and a half. The worst thing about this movie, though, is the tone.
Fair
See,
enough,
this was
then.
marketed as an X-Men horror
You
movie,
were allowed
and it is
to...
trying to do that some of the time.
You know.
I'm allowed to be a pervert here.
A spooky teen
Yeah.
thriller vibe. But then we also have
I'm not
scenes
gonna
where
care.
Anya Taylor-Joy summons a Winter Soldier cyborg arm.
No, that's not a cyborg arm. That's a fantasy knight arm.
Like we were just talking
That's a Dark
about
Souls arm.
sexual abuse in this movie. Where did this shit come from?
Yeah,
A lot of the bad
where,
superhero
why was my
movies
X-Men
nowadays,
shit not in my
this one
fucking
suffers
X-Men
from
movie?
Weird rewrites and reshoots, and you can definitely notice.
What's gotten into you, Sam?
Look, something's not right. I'm seeing things.
Something's not right. I'm speaking a really stupid cornball accent. Daniel Craig called he wants his stupid voice back.
It's a superhero movie. I've talked about it in previous videos, and I plan to talk about it even more in future videos. But here I honestly think this movie was probably screwed from the start. It just isn't interesting enough subject matter for a story like this, because we already know the whole mystery from the beginning. It is not hard to assume that the main character girl is causing the hallucinations and that the facility is run by evil people. But it still takes the entire movie to have these bits of information revealed to us. And this all ends up feeling like a bad young adult novel. And for
Yeah.
once, I think this is the one movie that actually needs to be a little longer. Because this one's only an hour and a half, and with a story like this, it really does
Really, because
work
it sure
better
didn't
as a
fucking
slow
feel like it.
build.
It felt like it was a hell of a lot longer than that.
Full of characters in a single ominous setting.
I almost want to know what it was,
Gotta learn that over
what it would have
time.
been like if they'd
It
actually
would've been a
managed to
lot
get the
better if you
reshoots
just
in.
Watch the characters slowly going
Yeah.
crazy. But no, that's not what happens here.
Because the
This
movie,
is very
like this
rough.
movie
The
was
third act begins
horrible.
so suddenly with a forced attempt to tie this movie into Logan, which
Yeah.
makes no sense because these movies are set in different timelines.
No, this
Now we
movie
know
is
when
set
the main
before.
antagonist just
Hey,
suddenly
hang on,
becomes
hang on,
insane.
hang on. How do you fuck that up, Marcus? How did you fuck that up? This movie is very clearly set before Logan. It's a prequel.
Yeah.
Sequel to previous films. It's not a good movie, but like, come on.
Evil, the
Criticize
second
it for real
one wants her
things.
to be. Like, she was a pretty chill lady, and then she just fucking loses it. By the time we get to the final confrontation, it's very hard to take it seriously, because now it feels like a completely different movie. When
All
started
I
watching
wanted
this, I swear to God, I did not
was to
think this
see
was building up to
the
a
giant
final
bear
battle with
fight
a
the
giant
dragon a little bit more.
CGI demon bear. There just isn't enough time to develop each character and flesh out their relationships with each other. Like, by the end, Cannonball doesn't even end up doing that much. I don't even remember him really using his powers that much either.
Yeah,
Have to be
yeah.
here. Usually ensemble superhero
None of
movies
these
feature
characters
characters
needed
that
to be here.
almost
We didn't need to be here, period.
the movie's kind of written around them. But it feels like most of these characters were just chosen at
Is he
random.
really using
Dog
TSS
Girl
for
could have
this?
been any other mutant, and it
Apparently.
doesn't change the story at all. She barely turns into a dog. There's a guy in this movie that I forgot existed until I came back to edit the video.
Hi, Sunspot.
He seriously doesn't even need to be here.
I remember you say.
This person doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
This movie is just
Yep.
so
I remember you saying about
weird.
Sunspot.
And remembering that this is the
Uh,
final X-Men movie makes
oh.
it even weirder. And I wish I could say more about it. I wish I could make
I am
fun
trying
of
to
the movie
remember
more for you
what
guys.
your
Give me the-
exact wording
here.
was
Exact wording about what now?
about the fact that Sunspot was after he transformed back from his fire form. He didn't have any clothes. You were like,
Hmm.
I'm trying to remember what you said,
Ooh.
but I know you were telling him to pretty much nut up. Whatever.
Go watch our Dark Phoenix commentary if you want further. Not Dark Phoenix.
It
New
was.
Mutants. Go watch our New Mutants commentary if you want further context about this. Alternatively, just don't watch New Mutants or Dark Phoenix.
There's just nothing here to make fun of. This is probably the weakest ending to the Fox X-Men franchise that I could imagine. And while it's not good, I guess I can kind of see what they were going for. Deep down, I can kind of see someone's vision. I just don't think it's executed well at all. So yeah, let's throw it on the tier list. And
What?
I'm gonna give it a 4. I don't know. I don't really care anymore. So that's
You-
it. All the X-Men movies. Now let's
But-
rank them all for real this time.
Well, that's
and see
fucking
how they stack
retarded.
up. Number 13, X-Men Dark Phoenix. It was pretty hard
No.
to decide which one of these was
No, New
worse.
Mutants
I
was
think the
definitely
final
worse.
4 movies in this list are really bad. So in the end, it really comes down to the fact that I never, ever want to watch this movie again.
I don't want to
Number
watch
12,
either of
number
those films.
11, and number
No,
10.
no, no.
These 3 are on the same level of quality for me. They're really bad.
Why is
but
New
they
Mutants
make me
not
laugh
there?
Quite a bit. Number 9, New Mutants.
Why is New
I think
Mutants
this
above
is where
those
we get to
3?
the end of the bad movies. Everything else from here
I'd
on
rather
is
watch
kinda
X3 than
okay.
this.
I just don't remember anything about
X-Men
this movie,
Apocalypse.
and I just watched it. Number
X-Men
8, number
Apocalypse.
7, Deadpool 1 and 2.
X-Men
Like I said,
Apocalypse
these
does
two
not
are
belong in the
basically the
same
same to
tier,
me. I enjoyed
period, with
watching them
these.
in the moment. I probably don't need to watch them ever again, and if I do, it's gonna be a while from now.
Deadpool
But I
is
like
one
this
of my
version the
favorite movies of
character, and I'd like to see
2016.
him in more stuff. Number 6, X-Men 1. Honestly, I kind of miss this movie now. I really took it for granted.
Yeah,
I've seen so much
you
stupid
kinda
shit at this
did.
point that I kind of miss how subdued and normal this movie was. Number 5, The Wolverine. This is where we get
It's kind of
into
a low
movies that
ranking.
I did enjoy unironically. It's really a shame that this movie goes off the rails as hard as it does, but I gotta say, I really enjoyed those first 2/3. If things had ended just a little bit differently, I think this movie could be much higher. Number 4, X-Men 2. This is where we get to the movies that I think are widely agreed to be pretty good, and X-Men 2 is probably the first good X-Men movie. This is a lot of people's favorite, and I can see why, even if it's not mine. Number 3, Days of Future Past. This was probably my biggest surprise of the list. I didn't think I'd like this movie as much as I
Okay.
did,
We already
but
know
hey,
what's number
it's pretty
2 and number
cool. If I
1.
turn off my brain and pretend that
First
this is
Class
the
number
actual
2, number
finale of
1
the
is
X-Men
Logan.
series, then I can
Those
live in
are,
peace.
you know, once we
Unfortunately,
got to the
that's
top
not
3,
the
this was just
Number 2,
respectable
X-Men First Class.
set of
I really
picks.
do love this movie. I think this one is the definitive X-Men movie. To the point where I think just about anybody can watch this and enjoy it. It just has energy that the other movies don't have. I really like it, and I could probably see myself watching it again one day. And number 1, to no one's surprise, is Logan. Yes, I know, very shocking, but Logan is the best X-Men movie. I almost don't want to count it because it's so much better than almost everything else on the list, but I have to be fair.
That's very
Really
strange.
at the top. When you compare this to everything else on this list, it's kind of a joke. But hey, this one couldn't exist without some of the previous movies, so I guess I have to accept that. Overall, I think the X-Men movies kind of fail as a franchise, and it's very confusing as to how they kept going for so long. I praised X-Men.
They made money, and they weren't afraid to fuck up and keep going, which is something that...
to capture what the
So the fact that they were unafraid to fuck up and keep going is kind of an admirable thing for Fox, because I would have really appreciated that attitude out of Sony if they'd have... either if they'd have made Spider-Man 4, or if they'd have made The Amazing Spider-Man 3. Hands up, I'm just gonna say that.
EU was doing at the time, and it just doesn't work as well. So yeah, this was fun, but I don't think I'm gonna miss this franchise very much. Maybe in a few years we'll get a really, really good X-Men movie again, but who knows? I'll probably be able to judge that one too. Though I will say that while I don't really like the X-Men movies, I have actually fallen in love with the comics. I'm for real. Normally when I finish one of these big...
How have you not read the X-Men comics beforehand?
I'm reviewing once I'm done. But I'm actually still reading X-Men comics. I read a good chunk of the Claremont run. That's kind of like the definitive starting place for X-Men as far as I've seen. It's kind of crazy how many of the core X-Men concepts started in just one single run by one guy. So if you want to get into X-Men yourself, I definitely recommend starting there. And since I already know the characters pretty well, I've been jumping around a little bit, and I do think that New X-Men by Grant Morrison is my favorite so far. But I think it definitely benefits you to start with the Chris Claremont run before reading that, because some of the context does help. But yeah,
why not just start with Uncanny X-Men #1?
Comics, so I guess there's a happy ending to all.
I also, you know, I remember picking up random issues of the X-Men back in the day as well.
I know a lot of people who've seen all of them, so if you have, definitely let me know if you survive.
You should also pick up Joss Whedon's run on X-Men. It was great.
I don't actually have any ideas anymore, but please give me a good franchise.
I'm not even kidding, by the way. Joss Whedon did an amazing run on X-Men.
Okay, bye.
Which is part of the reason why he was brought in to work on this. All right, so we are in at just over 3 hours.
All right, so we'll be back tomorrow with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Guardians of the Galaxy, you say? Is Star-Lord being replaced by a pumpkin?
Said Guardians.
That's unfortunate. I was looking forward to Squash Gamora. Oh wait, no. That's an Infinity War.
Damn it. Anyway.
Bill Clinton Fight Club, what?
Anyway, bye everybody.
Zip it, Stanley!
Bye everyone. We'll see you guys later.